Chapter 4879. This fellow had been watching from the side for half a day as if she was holding back water and hadn't stepped forward to help. Everyone didn't chide her because she was young, but it was fine if this fellow didn't help, but why was she making sarcastic remarks from the side? "Can you all move aside a bit?" Arbor hollered, her stoic face taut like a jade carving. The group of brothers and sisters blocking her way subconsciously took a few steps to the side, opening up a narrow path that only allowed one person to pass. Arbor wore a stinky expression as she pattered past the cultivators on both sides of the path. When she reached the red copper door, she took out a gilded copper key from her sleeve and circled the door. Then, she inserted the key into a relatively hidden keyhole that was so small. "Everyone, what happened? Where are we? What we are witnessing with our own eyes shouldn't be the truth, right?" When the red copper door creaked open, everyone looked at the little stoic in bewilderment. "Fuck, what were you doing earlier? Just when they were about to lose their lives from the bombardment, you freaking leisurely took out a key and opened the door in a matter of minutes." The little stoic's exquisite face was cold as she slowly put the key back into her sleeve. "Let's go. Everyone's mind. Again, what should I do if I freaking really want to hit her right now? I can't control my own emotions. I want to press her big head into a pool and make her sober up." "Ah, young Master Omega Kotoku," old manager Luo put on a fake smile. "Miss Jojo, isn't your reminder a bit late? Our divine power and spiritual energy are about to be freaking depleted, okay? Couldn't you have warned us earlier? You definitely exhausted us on purpose, right?" Arbor glanced coldly at everyone, disinclined to explain too much. On the other hand, Murong Fei hastily said, all right, don't say any more nonsense. Let's go quickly. Don't blame Jojo, we also have our own problems, okay?" Jojo opened her mouth several times to warn us, but we kept interrupting her every time she opened her mouth. "That's right." The emotional female cultivator hurriedly nodded. "I saw that Sir Joe wanted to speak several times, but after we interrupted him, he could only helplessly roll his eyes." Everyone was speechless. "Arbor, I don't want to talk to anyone right now." Chiao Mu's small face was taut as she strode through the red copper door and shouted, "Hurry." Everyone was like a clockwork, hurriedly taking 3 steps in 2, and rushed into the door together. "Young Master, come in quickly." Old Steward Luo stood at the entrance of the red bronze door. He looked back vigilantly and hurriedly called out to them. "Ling, let's go." Eldest young master and Ling looked at each other and nodded. The moment they put down their hands, the two of them quickly retreated to the red bronze door. Without the protection of the few transcendent realm experts, the combined barrier quickly shattered with a crisp sound. Bang! Eldest young Master Qin and the others hurriedly pushed the door shut. At this critical moment, they couldn't care less about their image. They just wanted to close the door quickly. However, after the gray wave shattered the barrier, it roared even more ferociously. It transformed into a giant gray bird and quickly moved to the front of the red bronze door, baring its fangs and brandishing its claws. Chapter 4880. When the red copper door closed until there was only a crack left, the remnant consciousness of the fish dragon rushed to the door with great resentment. The grayish air waves desperately tried to squeeze through the crack in the door. Everyone hurriedly sent out beams of Ling power and Shen power to seal the crack and chase away the remnant consciousness of the fish dragon that had burrowed through the red copper door. Following the sound of the door closing, everyone could not help but breathe a sigh of relief. At the same time, the wisps of mist that had burrowed through the door were eliminated by the Shouja. The sounds of the outside collapsing and the roars all returned to silence. Everyone looked at each other and heaved a sigh of relief. The members of the Duo clan fell to the ground and wiped their sweat as they panted. Rest, rest, rest for a while, rest. They had used up a lot of energy to attack the red copper door, and then to deal with the remnant of the fish dragon, they had used up almost all of their Ling power and Shen power. Right now, they were so weak that any one of them could push them to the ground with just the power of a finger. Arbor silently scanned the crowd and tilted her head to think, if I sell spirit herbs for a fee now, wouldn't it seem a bit unkind? If she dared to say that she was selling spirit herbs at a black price now, would she be beaten up immediately? Little Shimmy, how are you? Murong Fei gripped the sword in her hand, her right hand trembling slightly. I'm fine. Arbor glanced at her and took out a bottle of mind recovery medicine from her pocket. Drink 2 mouthfuls, then meditate and adjust your breathing. Murong Fei reached out to take it. Is this recovery medicine? Little Shimmy, then drink first. Arbor said expressionlessly. I didn't use up any energy just now, I don't need to drink medicine. Everyone, was it painful? It was really painful. Why did everyone want to hit her so much when she said this? Then all right. Murong Fei answered dryly. Sitting down, she drank 2 mouthfuls of the medicine and hurriedly closed her eyes to adjust her breathing. The others also took out all kinds of spirit recovery pills, recovery elixirs, and so on from their inner worlds. They swallowed the pills and drank the elixirs as they entered a state of cultivation. After the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, Murong Fei jumped up and said to Arbor in surprise, Junior sister, my God, your spirit recovery elixir is really amazing. I drank it for the time it takes for an incense stick to burn and I feel that my God power has recovered by 50%. That's amazing. Murong Fei smiled so widely that her teeth could not be seen. She jumped up and said, I'll send some to my brother to drink. Drink 2 mouthfuls at a time. You don't need more than an hour to adjust your breath, Arbor instructed. All right. At this time, many of the people present also withdrew from their cultivation state. However, the fastest among them had only recovered 20% of their strength. Compared to Murong Fei's speed, it was like heaven and earth. Arbor noticed that there were many pairs of eyes around and they were all looking in her direction. After considering for a few seconds, seeing that they had worked together to resist the sacred beast, she reluctantly took out a few bottles of spirit recovery elixir from her pocket. She hesitated and said, the market price of this elixir is 100,000 per bottle. You only need to take 2 mouthfuls at a time. You can only take it once in 24 hours. Everyone smiled happily and thanked her profusely. After an hour, everyone had recovered about 60 to 70%. They finally had some confidence in their hearts. Xiao Mu took advantage of this time to survey her surroundings. She saw strange peaks and steep cliffs. Chapter 48-81. The scenery in front of them actually transformed into stone cliffs and precipitous cliffs. A male cultivator from the Duo clan took a step forward and suddenly felt his body tilt. He cried out in alarm and was about to fall. Duo Shanmei reacted swiftly and flung out a belt to pull him back. The male cultivator's face was ghastly pale as he stammered, Miss Duo. I said don't act rashly. Duo Shanmei also broke out in a cold sweat. Observe the situation before acting. Everyone looked in the direction that the man was falling. They saw that there was clearly a rugged path where he stepped. The male cultivator hastily said, I feel like I'm stepping on air. This path isn't substantial. It must be an illusion. Everyone nodded with a solemn expression. They were currently standing on an oval platform. Looking down, they saw tree roots and stone pillars supporting the platform they were standing on. Looking ahead, it was hazy. There were several small paths that led to the strange cliffs ahead. Every winding and rugged path ultimately sank into layers of dense fog, making it impossible to see the path ahead. Which path should we choose? After walking for a while, the little stoic was a bit hungry. She was taking out half a mantou and nibbling on it when she happened to see everyone's gazes simultaneously on her. She instantly felt baffled. She hastily stuffed the half mantou into her small mouth as if she was protecting her food. She looked at everyone vigilantly. Everyone instantly felt like they were struck by lightning. Please. We don't want to snatch your mantou. Eldest young Sir Chin couldn't resist twitching his eyes. Cultivators wouldn't starve to death even if they didn't eat for several days, so there really wasn't a need to snatch half a mantou. Murong Fei couldn't resist coughing. Little junior sister, how about you point out a path? Everyone nodded in unison. There were 17 to 18 winding paths in front of them. When they couldn't determine which path to take, everyone inexplicably thought that it would be better to have the stoic woman point out the path. Indeed, the stoic woman was absolutely extraordinarily gifted and top-notch when it came to luck. Seeing everyone's trusting gazes gathered on her, Lady Jojo gave them a strange look. She really didn't understand why these people had so much confidence in her. Even she herself wasn't confident. Arbor glanced at the 17 or 18 roads and pointed to a small road on the left that was overgrown with withered grass. Ashoujo looked in puzzlement. The path covered in cobblestones beside this withered grass path seemed to be easier to walk on. Can you tell me why you chose this path? Old Manager Luo asked with a smile. Arbor had already started walking towards the path, his mouth indifferently dropping 2 words, intuition. She felt that there was something waiting for her in front. This feeling grew stronger the further she walked. It was as if something was calling out to her. Calling out to her strongly. Xiao Mu stepped onto that small path of withered branches and withered leaves, walking forward without any hesitation. The rest of the people hurriedly followed. Elder Steward Luo's eyes flashed, and when he turned to look at eldest young Master Qin, he could only helplessly follow after eldest young Master Qin. Walking on this small path, the dozen or so rugged paths in the surroundings instantly disappeared. This path led straight to the heavily foggy area ahead. It seemed to extend into the depths of the mountain forest. It looked rugged, but when they walked up, they found it was extremely flat. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief and hurriedly followed with light footsteps. Chapter 4882. We can be considered to have entered the depths of the Pond Lotus Sacred Realm, right? A cultivator asked uncertainly. Definitely. The emotional female cultivator nodded and sighed ruefully. Other than that sacred ichthyosaur beast exceeding our expectations, everything else went smoothly. Everyone nodded in agreement and secretly peeked at the expressionless arbor below. Even if others praised her in front of her, this fellow's emotions didn't fluctuate at all. Looking at her was truly stifling. I wonder if there are still unknown dangers hidden in the depths of the Pond Lotus Sacred Realm. In short, everyone needs to be careful. If anyone remembers any relevant information, remember to share it with us. Do Xinwu pursed her lips and said, this isn't only for our teammates, but also for our own lives. Don't be like some people, always giving advice after the fact and only taking out crucial items after watching others work hard for half a day. The little stoic suddenly paused and turned around to glance at her. You're talking about me? No. You're talking about me. Do Tingqi hastily waved his hand and pushed his indignant sister behind him. The Crown Princess, my younger sister is a straightforward person. She doesn't have any bad intentions. Watch your mouth. The little stoic coldly glanced at Do Xinwu. If you can't control it, I can help you. Do Xinwu jumped in fright from her pitch-black and sinister pupils. She pulled on her older brother Do Tingqi's sleeve and shrunk back. How could this little stoic be so unreasonable? She merely muttered in her heart indignantly, but as a result, she was warned by this stoic with a murderous glare. That gaze was quite hateful. Do Shinmu muttered a few words, but her older brother Do Tingqi tugged at her, so she didn't continue speaking. Everyone followed the rugged path overgrown with withered grass forward, their pace getting faster and faster. Do you guys hear anything? Seems like there is, but also seems like there isn't. Is there wind? I can see the path ahead. That's right, I can see it too. My line of sight seems to have brightened up quite a bit all of a sudden, someone excitedly called out. Speed up. Murong Fei shouted. She hurriedly took a deep breath and sprinted forward. A bunch of idiots. Just by looking at the bright light, can't you feel that the little junior sister leading the way is getting faster and faster? Mother! A cry of surprise came from the side. Duo Shanmei turned her head to look and saw a Xiuzha from a small family tremble and fall down. She couldn't help but follow his gaze. At the bottom of this rugged path overgrown with vegetation, where the light and shadow flickered, a cliff of 10,000 feet appeared. Tongues of fire kept darting up from the bottom of the cliff, burning the withered grass hanging at the bottom of the path. No wonder they felt that their surroundings were much brighter. It turned out that there was a sea of fire below them. Duo Shanmei watched as the cultivator fell and was swallowed by the sea of fire like a small soybean. Her mind couldn't help but become a little dazed. Her legs trembled slightly, and her body became a little unstable. Miss Duo, don't look down. The Xiuzha behind her hurriedly reached out to support her. Seeing her pale face, he hurriedly said, Don't look down. You'll feel dizzy if you look. Hurry and run. Someone in the group shouted. Everyone's speed immediately rose to a new level. The raging flames at the bottom of the cliff swelled with the wind and shot up high with a whoosh. Chapter 4883. Everyone who was running on the rugged path immediately felt the burning sensation under their feet as they jumped and ran forward. That's not right, Murong Fei cursed in her heart. Why do I feel that ever since we entered this damned mystic realm, we have been running for our lives? Previously, we ran for our lives when we met the ichthyosaur and escaped when the ichthyosaur self-destructed. Now, the flames came again after running for their lives for so long, it seemed like there was no end to it. Could it be that the owner of the mystic realm was deliberately exhausting their energy? Do Shinmu felt the burning sensation under her feet as she stomped and jumped, her face twisted as she scolded. What intuition! What a joke! Intuition is to let everyone on this iron plate and become roasted food. Arbor led the way with flying talismans and steadily led the way. Do Shinmu's complaining voice was not soft and naturally, Arbor heard it all. Arbor did not want to lower himself to her level and did not intend to pay attention to her at first. Who would have thought that the more she scolded, the more energetic she became, and strongly complained to his big brother Do Tingqi. Qiao Mu was truly a bit annoyed from listening, so she suddenly stopped in her tracks. She abruptly turned around and flew to Do Shinwu's front with a whoosh. Do Shinwu's prattling words froze in her throat on the spot, and she dazedly gazed at Qiao Mu with a dumbfounded expression. Grand, Crown Princess. Do Tingqi was frightened by the sudden appearance of the little Crown Princess in front of him and his sister and almost fell down from the road. So much nonsense. Arbor's finger tapped lightly in the air. Do Shinmu suddenly opened her mouth and found that she could not spit out a single syllable. There was only a heh sound coming from her throat, like the sound of air passing through. Heh. Do Shinmu reached out and beat her chest as she stared at Arbor in horror. She raised her hand to touch her throat and once again made two heh sounds. Do Tingqi also panicked and cried out helplessly, Grand, Crown Princess, what did you do to my sister? Please be magnanimous and let her go. So noisy. Arbor impatiently glanced at the siblings, turned around, returned to his original position, and continued to rush forward with the flight talisman. Run if you don't want to die. Murong Xiao took a deep breath and sped up to catch up. The group of people behind her didn't have the mood to care about Do Axayan Wu's gestures. They quickly ran past her, leaving the Do siblings far behind. Do Fenghua looked back at them and said in a deep voice, "Hurry up and keep up." This pair of siblings were truly oddballs. Why were they still arguing with the little stoic at a time like this and refusing to leave? Could it be that they were tired of living? "Sister, let's run for our lives first." Of course, Do Xinwu wanted to escape as well. At this time, her feet felt like they were being burned by a raging fire. If she didn't run now, it would be too late. Run. It's over, it's over. The stone path beneath my feet doesn't seem to be able to withstand the fire. Someone with sharp nerves seemed to have heard a very slight sound coming from the stone path under their feet. Pai Pa, it's over, it's over, it's over, the road is about to be melted by the fire. The road is going to collapse. Hurry and run. Everyone had a long face as they secretly ridiculed in their hearts. The little crown princess's bullshit intuition was seriously too deceptive. Her intuition was to bring them back home. Arbor looked back at the sour-faced crowd and said expressionlessly, "Teammate price, a flight talisman for 50,000 spirit coins." Chapter 4884. Buy, I'll buy. Buy, I'll buy too. Give me 2 flying talismans. I'll give you 3. Can you give me another speed talisman, Crown Princess? Crown Princess, I don't have that much cash. Can you give me an IOU first? The little Crown Princess looked at the man who was about to give her an IOU with an indifferent expression. Her eyes were full of contempt. How can you have the face to ask me for an IOU? Do you think your face is worth 1,000 gold just because you're good-looking? That man rubbed his nose embarrassedly. Then I really don't have that much cash on me. Arbor felt that he had nothing to say to someone who couldn't even take out 50,000 spirit coins in cash. I can use my family's identity tablet to pay you. When the time comes, you just have to send a servant to my house and use the tablet to exchange for 10,000 spirit coins. Even if you want to spend so much effort, I'm too lazy to cooperate with you. Arbor glanced at him. I'm selling it at a teammate's price. The market price isn't 50,000 spirit coins. You have to be clear about this. How much? 500,000. Arbor raised his hand and received the identity tablet into his storage talisman. Anyone who wants to buy on credit will be sold at the market price. Tears streamed down the man's cheeks in his heart. The expressionless crown princess was probably the world's #1 scammer. The market price was actually 10 times higher than it was now. The man felt that his heart was dripping blood. But to tell the truth, since he had given the identity tablet to the crown princess, he didn't dare to do anything to scam the crown princess. Otherwise, the consequences would be hard to predict. After everyone received the flying talismans and speed talismans, they immediately imitated the little crown princess and slapped the 2 talismans on their bodies. They immediately felt the feeling of flying forward. Sure enough, their speed suddenly increased. Their feet could even leave the scalding ground, saving the soles of their feet that were about to be cooked. The crowd of practitioners suddenly felt a bit happier. They thought that the 50,000 spirit coins were well spent. The flying talisman's function was really different from ordinary talismans. Everyone lined up in 2 rows and flew forward for a long distance. Suddenly, they saw a white shadow drifting back and forth in the mountain fog. Ghost! The emotional female cultivator was so scared that she almost fell to the ground. Murong Fei was speechless. Could this young lady not be so funny? You're a high-rank spirit realm cultivator, yet you're afraid of a mere chimay. The group didn't stop and immediately flew over. As they got closer, they could see a white figure wearing a white dress. She was wandering back and forth, back and forth. This can't really be a mountain spirit, right? Murong Fei stuttered. To be honest, when she saw this kind of thing, she felt her hair stand on end. The white figure suddenly turned his head. His long hair was scattered in front of his eyes, covering his face. He looked like a gloomy wind, and it was quite scary. Especially this white robe and black hairstyle, it was quite scary. Several female cultivators screamed in fright and subconsciously hugged each other for warmth. Arbor also floated over. He suddenly stretched out a small claw and grabbed a section of the other's long hair, pulling it with all his strength. It seems to be a wisp of soul. Young Master Omega Kotoku glanced and said, "No, it can't be." A female cultivator from the Duan clan whispered, "Didn't the crown princess catch her?" Chapter 4885. Wasn't the crown princess a little too weird? She could grab a soul with just a stretch of her hand. Who would believe it if they didn't see it with their own eyes? Xiao Mu grabbed that soul's long hair and yanked it twice, dragging her to her side. She raised her small hand and brushed aside the messy hair covering her face, only to meet a pair of curved eyes that contained a faint smile. "You?" Arbor opened her mouth in surprise. "Aren't you that?" Arbor had a deep impression of this girl. It wasn't because of anything else, but because this girl had drifted in the void just like her. She even drifted for a longer period of time than her. However, it was hard to say. Master Jojo didn't want to recall these things. But 3,000 years in the void. Thinking of this number, Jojo felt a little shocked. It was hard to imagine how she spent 3,000 years drifting alone. At least Master Jojo had the damn tree to accompany him. M.O. Arbor stretched out a small finger and remembered her name. "Who are you?" "You know me." This girl's voice was long and her speech was much slower than normal people. It was as if someone had slowed her speech by 2 times. Xiao Mu raised her hand and rapped her head. "Why are you in a daze?" "Everyone, that's right." This girl looked like half a soul now. What they met in the Sun-Moon Mystery Realm last time could be her main soul. This half-soul could only form a small part of her consciousness. It didn't have the main soul's memories at all. Therefore, it was understandable that she didn't recognize him with her silly look. Arbor raised her hand and pulled her long hair. "I'm your good friend, Arbor. You look very similar." Mo imitated him and raised a finger, waving it in front of Arbor. "What do you mean look similar?" Arbor pulled down her finger and continued to lie with an honest expression. "Of course we look alike. We've met before. I knew you didn't disappear." The little monk was talking nonsense. He even said that your soul had scattered. "Look, isn't there still half of your soul here?" He must have been drifting in the void, and half of his soul had been sucked into this secret realm without him knowing. "Ah, that's right. Did the sun and moon twin wheels run off to look for you?" "What about the sun-moon wheels? Have you kept the sun and moon wheels?" "The sacred artifact has a spirit. It should be able to help you recover your essence soul." Arbor pulled her sleeve and looked back and forth. He frowned. "Where are the sun and moon wheels? Why isn't it on you?" Could it be? She suddenly thought of a possibility and her eyes lit up. There was no doubt that the sun-moon twin wheels had gone to follow Mo. However, since the aura of the sun-moon twin wheels was not present on this half of the soul, there was only one possibility: don't be in a daze. "Come out with me later." Xiao Mu grumpily smacked her head. "You'll definitely be saved." "What's your name?" Mo asked. Didn't I tell you? My name is Arbor. Don't forget it in the future. Arbor said angrily. You're so young. How can your memory be so bad? Right, what's the place in front of us? You've lived here for so long. You must know the way. Bring me there. Ah. Mo raised a finger and said slowly, there's you. What do you mean there's me? It was really hard to talk to an idiot. Chapter 4886. Ah. There's you. Mo repeated what he said just now. Even the he uttered was the same as before. Arbor, this scammer silently took out an image jade talisman from her pocket and pointed it at Mo. What do you mean there's me? Ah. There, you. Everyone, wasn't this scammer a scammer? Why did she have to preserve her current idiotic appearance? Was she plotting to show it to others in the future so that they could mock her? Alright, where do we go now? I know the way. Mo said word by word. Lead the way. Mo's figure slowly turned backward. Her feet didn't touch the ground as she floated forward. Arbor used a flying talisman to follow her. Omega Kotoku and the others also hurriedly followed. At the end of the small path, a vast mountain appeared. Everyone followed Mo up the mountain. After floating for a while, they realized that they seemed to have circled back to the starting point. Why are we following this idiot? Elder Luo frowned and couldn't help but ask. Does this spirit know the way or not? I know the way. Mo said word by word. Mo, it's fine. Continue walking. Ciao, ciao, you. Mo raised her hand and pointed forward. Arbor turned back and looked at everyone. You all stay here first. I'll go with Mo to scout the way. Ha, ha, ha. The mute and talkative Do Shinwoo couldn't help but blush. She pointed at her throat and glared angrily at Arbor. Do Tingchi glanced at his sister and stammered. This isn't very appropriate. Crown Princess. We're all in the same team. How can you run alone? Then you go with Mo to scout the way. Arbor very straightforwardly took a step back. Do Tingchi's face instantly turned pale from fright. He quickly took a step back. Murong Fei turned and glared at him. Do you think scouting is easy? That's a dangerous thing. If you're not careful, you might encounter some ultimate great saint beast. If you're so good, then go. Do Tingchi only felt that his mouth was a little dry. He hurriedly shook his head and said, yes, I didn't think it through. Grand, Crown Princess, you go ahead. Jojo, I'll go with you. Eldest young Master Qin floated to her side with a grin. The moment he opened his mouth to speak, his second brother, Qin Axayan, frowned. Arbor glanced at Big Qin expressionlessly. He didn't say whether it was possible or not and turned around. Just as he was about to leave, Mo suddenly wagged a finger at eldest young Sir Qin. You can't. Everyone was speechless. None of you can do it. Mo pointed at the disciples of the various aristocratic families who were watching from the side. A male Shouja in the front row was so angry that smoke came out of his head. Who can't? Not even your whole family. How could this girl speak like that? He's young and a fool. He doesn't even know how to speak. Xiao Mu glared at the male cultivator that retorted. Shut up. Don't bully her because she can't out-talk you. Be careful or I'll hit you. Everyone, don't be afraid of him. Arbor patted the back of Mo's hand. Say whatever you want. Let's go. Eldest young Master Qin said speechlessly, Jojo. Arbor turned and raised his hand forcefully. he said decisively, then it's decided. Rest here for an hour. I'll be back quickly. Finishing, he quickly pulled Mo into a nearby thicket. The two instantly floated far away. Young master, how can you let her leave by herself? Old Steward Luo's gaze flashed as he hurriedly said. Chapter 4887. When the old steward said this, Do Xinwu and the others hastily nodded their heads. That's right, how could they let the little stoic leave by herself like this? They quickly followed old Steward Luo and pushed aside the tree branches, wanting to pass through the place Arbor and Nemo left. However, an extremely heavy pressure suddenly bounced them back. After a bang sound, a terrifying buzzing sound came into their ears. Everyone felt their eardrums were about to become crooked from the vibrations, and they looked up to take a closer look. Instead, they saw an oval-shaped barrier that connected heaven and earth appeared in front of them. It was like a covered bowl, blocking all of them in here. MMPH. Do Xinwu anxiously pointed at her throat and angrily stomped her feet. In reality, she had already cursed all 18 generations of Arbor's ancestors in her heart. This damned perverted woman actually dared to poison her mute. Right now, she must be following that mystic realm's guardian spirit into the depths of the Pond Lotus sacred realm to search for magic treasures first. What else could the rest of them find in the mystic realm after she had taken the initiative to stir things up? The more she thought about it, the angrier she became. However, there was nothing she could do, so Do Xinwu angrily stomped her feet again. Unfortunately, even if she stomped through the ground, she couldn't leave this place for the time being. The boundary seal here is quite sturdy, young Master Omega Kotoku said as he tried to push out a palm. If everyone concentrates their strength to attack the same place, how long will it take to leave this place? Old Steward Luo hastily asked. It'll take at least 2 hours. Arbor followed Mo's faintly discernible figure as they flew for about 5 minutes. Seeing her stop in front of a patch of withered grass and withered leaves, Arbor looked around. What's here? Come. Mo grabbed her hand and used her sleeves to brush away the grass in front of her. Layers of grass and leaves retreated to the left and right sides, and lotus flowers of all colors bloomed in front of her eyes one after another. Arbor stared blankly for a moment and couldn't help but quicken her steps forward. From her point of view, the surface of the lake was covered with lotuses of various colors. The petals were pressed against each other, and the faint fragrance of the lotuses spread in all directions along with the lake breeze. Layers upon layers of lotus flowers interweaved together, making one feel as if they had arrived at a fairyland. Joe. Pick. Mo slowly spat out a few words. He raised his hand and pointed at the lotus flowers in front of him. He pointed at the most plump lotus flower in the center that was blooming with 9-colored light, then raised his hand and patted his chest. That expression of, we're friends, you can pluck it as much as you want really caught her off guard. Okay. Arbor's eyes wandered back and forth. He tugged at Mo's hand and asked, You've been living here all this time. Have you seen other souls? Yes. Mo nodded his head repeatedly with an adorable look on his face. Jojo's eyes lit up. Where is it? Take me there. Mo pulled her hand and floated towards the center of the lake for a while. Then, he pulled her to a white lotus flower and stood there. Look. Mo pushed Arbor's small body and turned her around, indicating for her to look forward. Arbor couldn't help but be dumbfounded when she saw what was in front of her. She saw an expressionless girl sitting cross-legged on a scarlet lotus flower to the side. Wasn't that signature stoic face her main body? There was actually a fourth soul remembrance here. It really was surprising. Chapter 4888. You. Mo pointed at her, then at the soul remembrance sitting cross-legged on the white lotus. Realization dawned on Arbor at this. No wonder this idiot kept tugging at her and saying, "There's yours, there's yours." It turned out that she wanted to tell her that a wisp of her soul remembrance was stored here. Why wasn't she moved at all earlier and didn't detect it at all? Confusion arose in Arbor's heart. Logically speaking, she should have detected this wisp of soul remembrance when it was so close to her. Could it be that there was an even more powerful divine sense manifestation here that blocked out all the divine senses in this space? While she was pondering, the lake water splashed, and a drenched head abruptly popped out of the water. When Arbor's eyes met his, her small mouth involuntarily gaped. This person really resembled her lotus. His features were picturesque, and his thin lips were lightly pursed. They simply looked identical. However, his eyes were as clear and pure as a fawn's. Right now, he was staring at her without blinking, and it was as if there were stars twinkling in his eyes. She watched as he popped out of the water and pounced on the lotus, looking like he was about to reach out to hug her. Lord Xiqiao did not say anything else and gave him a slap, ruthlessly slapping him into the lake. She heard the sound of water splashing, and soon, that fellow's head popped out from the bottom of the water, and he was looking at her with a confused expression. "Don't think that you're my lotus just because you look like my lotus. Who exactly are you? Why are you pretending to be my lotus?" That fellow soaked in the water with an aggrieved expression. Not long after he looked at her, he actually started to cry. Arbor silently took out a jade image talisman and recorded Mo Lian's crying appearance. The little stoic reflexively rubbed her stomach and thought, "Child, mother saved your father's silly appearance of shedding golden beans. I'll show it to you in the future." Many years later, our dear Mo Lian would be ridiculed by her child for many years. This was a story for later. "You hit me." At this time, the pitiful Mo Lian was looking at Arbor pitifully with an accusatory expression. "Speak. Who are you?" As soon as Xiao Mu shouted, Mo Lian's thin body trembled slightly, and he confessed everything in full detail like a bamboo tube spilling beans. I am the soul and soul of Shang, the ancient Mo Lian. I have half of it in that person's sea of consciousness." Although this guy was stammering, Xiao Mu was very familiar with Mo Lian's matters, so she naturally understood his meaning in a second. The ancient inheritance Mo Lian in Mo Lian's body was actually not complete. Half of it was actually lingering in the corner of the river of forgetfulness. Even he himself didn't know. "Why are you here?" The little fellow roared at him again. Mo Lian stammered in fear. She bit her lip and said pitifully, "I've always been here." "Yes, it's him, he's stupid, he doesn't know. He inherited this for so many years, but he still doesn't know." Arbor, from the looks of it, Mo Lian was indeed stupid enough. The ancient Mo Lian's inheritance in his body was not complete, yet he was still muddle-headed even now. Who are you calling stupid? Even if her husband was stupid, he could only be scolded by Jojo. No one else could scold him, not even ancient Mo Lian. "I am stupid." The ancient Black Lotus pitifully followed up with this sentence. "Of course you're stupid. What ancient Mo Lian? You can't even leave the mystic realm you set up yourself." Arbor grumpily reprimanded her. Chapter 4889. Hurry and tidy up. Bring my soul remembrance and follow me out with Mo. Arbor shouted and beckoned to ancient Mo Lian who was soaking in the water. She had to bring this fellow back. Mo Lian still didn't know that her lousy inheritance was only half complete. If she didn't bring him back, how could her lotus inheritance be completely passed on to ancient Mo Lian? Judging from this fellow's deceitful and muddle-headed appearance, he was probably also mentally retarded. Sir Jojo purposely forgot about his meditative soul remembrance. From beginning to end, that soul remembrance didn't open its eyes or speak. It didn't even show the slightest change in expression. In reality, this soul remembrance of his was more like a mentally retarded one. Nah. Mo tugged on his sleeve and pointed at the lake full of lotus flowers. I'll try and see if I can refine this place later. He had already discussed with Jojo's lotus that they had to refine this pond lotus sacred realm. They had even thought of a name for this planet a while ago. Planet Jojo's lotus. Arbor delightedly thought about it and patted the back of Mo's hand. Watch me. Mo nodded at him, half understanding. He probably didn't understand what refined meant. This trip to the pond lotus sacred realm was unusually smooth. Not only did they find ancient Emolien's soul, but they also found their own. They also found Mo. Most importantly, they had the ingredients to nourish the cute little puppy. Murong Sun's awakening was just around the corner. Thinking about it this way, this trip was simply too worth it. Oh, right. Xiao Mu abruptly recalled something, and she grabbed the ancient black lotus's sleeve. She asked in excitement, "Can you contact the other half of your soul?" In theory, it should be possible. Why you, fierce? Ancient Mo Lien shrunk back, aggrieved. Xiao Mu bluntly rapped his melon seed head and memorized all of his silly looks while she was at it. Jojo's lotus was ruined by this retard in front of him. Try it. Arbor tugged at his sleeve. You must be able to sense where they are. Hurry up. Don't dawdle. Ancient Mo Lien looked pitifully at Arbor. But, it needs time. I'll protect you. Arbor pulled Ancient Mo Lien onto a swaying lotus and patted his right shoulder. I'm counting on you. Ancient Mo Lien hurriedly pulled down her sleeves and retracted them from Arbor's fingers. Then, you have to treat me better. Sir Jojo secretly gritted his teeth and resisted the urge to use his fish to wake her up. He revealed an intimidating smile and shouted at her. Hurry up. Ancient Mo Lien hurriedly sat down cross-legged and clapped her hands in front of her. Her clear eyes slowly closed. Rumble, rumble, rumble. More than 2 hours later, everyone continuously attacked a point on the seal barrier and finally broke it. Everyone's expression brightened as they cheered and ran out. The pitch-black mountain path led to the top of the mountain. There were 4 to 5 paths in total. Miss Murong, you're close to the Crown Princess. Did she tell you which path we should take? Murong Fei furrowed her brows silently. It had been nearly 4 hours since Jojo disappeared. Now, she was a little worried about her junior sister. She didn't know where her junior was at this moment. Chapter 4890. Old Steward Luo looked at the numerous mountain paths that led to the top of the mountain and muttered, "It should be that mountain path." He pointed to the third path on the left. Miss Chow's aura faintly seeped out from there. "I guess it should be this path." Everyone was in a daze. Hearing the old steward's words, they hurriedly calmed down and spread out their spiritual senses to feel. "Then what are we waiting for? Let's go." A disciple of a small aristocratic family waved his arm forcefully. Without another word, he pulled his fellow disciples and strode towards the mountain path. Suddenly, 2 or 3 strange things pounced out of the grass, baring their fangs and brandishing their claws as they roared. Their movements were very shocking. They pounced on people when they saw them. When they opened their mouths, they revealed eerie fangs. That aristocratic family disciple was so frightened that his face turned green. He hurriedly pulled out his saber and slashed at the back of the head of the corpse puppet that was hugging him. The corpse puppet's body clearly stiffened. The aristocratic family disciple was shocked and scared, reaching out to push him away. Something unexpected happened. The corpse puppet lowered its head and opened its mouth to bite his head. Those sharp fangs pierced the top of his head and bit off half of his scalp. Ah! The emotional female Shio stuttered. How can there be corpse puppets in a secret realm? It seems to be. It's people from our camp, another Shouja hurriedly said. It's fishermen. We saved them. The fishermen of Seaside Village. What happened? How did they all turn into corpses? Impossible. This kind of natural secret realm can absorb Shin power even with a breath. It's impossible for it to mutate. Get out of the way. Duo Shanmei roared. She pulled out her long sword and cut off the arm of a corpse puppet. Yet when the arm fell to the ground, it still jumped a few times. A Shouja hurriedly threw a fireball over. Only then was the arm burned to ashes. Don't think about these useless things. Let's take care of them first. The underwater Abyss City Lord's mansion was transformed from a dozen large connected caves. Inside Great Lord GC's bedroom, there was a curtain made of shells and pearls. He swept open the curtains and entered the room. There was a stone table, stone stools, and an exquisitely carved stone bed. The wine vessels made of precious gems were overflowing with light. The light of the pearls illuminated the entire cave. The lithe great suzerain GC was lying on the stone bed and playing with her 10 slender fingers. When he heard his subordinate report that he had lost the chase, the great lord suddenly became ruthless. He picked up the wine vessel beside him and smashed it on the person's head with a bang. The wine vessel was made of the toughest material in the deep sea, phosphor. If it hit a person's head, it would be enough to knock them out. The subordinate immediately fell to the ground, not even able to make a sound before he died. Seeing him like this, GC angrily scolded, "Useless thing, you can't even catch a few thieves who broke into the city lord's mansion. What's the point of me keeping you people? Drag him away. Drag him away." Just looking at him made him feel extremely annoyed. "Go and find the 28 men that I have recently taken into my residence." "Yes, great suzerain Darren." The young servant girl kneeling beside the curtain had an ugly face with a red imprint on it. She hurriedly crawled away. "Useless thing." Great suzerain GC snorted. She crossed her slender legs and swayed them slightly. Her eyes unconsciously looked up. Chapter 4891. Ah! Before she could even let out a scream of terror, she was completely silenced by a handful of poison powder that came head-on. She felt a burning pain in her throat, causing her to stare at the person with a twisted face. After opening her mouth twice, she couldn't make a sound. GC understood that her voice was muffled by the poison powder thrown down by that person. The most frightening thing was that the man had been quietly lying dormant on the ceiling of the cave since some time ago. He was stuck there like a thin paper man. When she raised her head and saw such a thing, she was greatly traumatized. If anyone was in their room and saw a stranger on the ceiling, they wouldn't be able to calm down. GC scrambled to her feet and hurriedly tried to flee. Unfortunately, he bumped into the restrictive barrier and was bounced back, smashing into his stone bed with a loud thud. Although the stone bed was covered with a very soft fish skin mattress, the fall still made the great lord choke. Who are you?" This great lord GC couldn't speak. She could only glare at the middle-aged man who floated down. Her eyes flickered with slight panic. She occupied the mountain and was the king. After so many years in the sacrificial sea abyss, this was the first time she suffered such a big loss. Someone actually snuck into her cave and she didn't notice it until now. "You're one of those thieves." Great Lord GC questioned the middle-aged man in front of her. However, the other party didn't even bother to look at her. He walked in front of her and slapped her body. Great Lord GC opened her mouth in pain. She watched as a black pill flew into her mouth and merged with her saliva. Great Lord GC's expression changed. She grabbed the clothes in front of her chest and retched. At this moment, it was completely noisy outside. Zwolon Mountain was in front of the cave and attracted the firepower of the entire evil kingdom. In front of everyone, it transformed into a huge snake. As it lifted its tail, the stone bricks on the cave wall rolled down. Among the more than 50 natives of the evil kingdom, at least 20 to 30 of them gathered their firepower and attacked the snake with all their might. At this critical moment, the venerable Peach Blossom Immortal appeared beside Zwolon Mountain. He grabbed his right shoulder and kept transferring saint power to him. The combined firepower of dozens of natives and the combined firepower of the two of them caused an earth-shaking collision, as if two star domains had collided. All of the aborigines were sent flying, and their wails were heard all over the place. Zwolon Mountain snorted. "You guys overestimate yourselves." One of the aboriginals who had been sent flying shouted with a face full of shock, quickly report to the great feudal lord." Someone who's not afraid of death, came to the city lord's mansion to cause trouble. As soon as he finished his sentence, he was smashed into a pile of meat paste by the 100-meter-long tail of the humanoid snake. "You talk too much. Can't you be quieter? Are you looking for this great lord?" Prince Mo, who was disguised as a middle-aged man and had an ordinary appearance, pressed his sword against Great Lord GC's back and forced her to walk over step by step. Great Lord GC's lips trembled as if she was so angry that she couldn't speak. However, the truth was that the poison had already dissolved in her stomach and was overturning the sea. Chapter 4892. Now, she only felt that her body was alternating between hot and cold, as though she was sitting on a small boat, bobbing up and down on the turbulent sea. She wanted to concentrate her spiritual sense, but it was extremely difficult. Everything in front of her was blurry, and the sounds by her ears seemed to be getting further and further away. She panicked for no reason, and GC raised her head strenuously, wanting to see the face of the middle-aged man in front of her clearly. But it was a pity that this was a face without any distinguishing features, and he did not look like a cultivator who had embarked on the path of cultivation. There was not the slightest change in expression on his ordinary face. No, that's not right. This person's face looked a little strange, as though it was a fake face. That's right, his face did not match his temperament that was as cold as snow. This person had changed his appearance. GC widened her eyes in shock, and just as this thought floated through her mind, she felt a sharp pain in her back. She involuntarily took a few steps forward. Great Lord! A few of the natives of the city of Sin could not help but cry out mournfully when they saw their boss being held down. GC was held down by Mo Lien's sword, and she walked down the stone step by step. Her originally charming face was now pale and distorted. If you don't want to die, tell them not to resist and obediently throw away the weapons in their hands. Mo Lien sneered unrestrainedly, and the sword in her hand pierced into the woman's back. What do you want? GC suddenly realized that she could speak, and she hurriedly shouted, "Do you know how many people there are in the Sin Kingdom? You want to rebel with just the few of you? You must be tired of living." Slap! Hearing this woman speak, the venerable Peach Blossom Immortal felt extremely bored, and gave her a heavy slap across the ear. Say something more practical. He did not know if he should say that she was stupid. Half of her life was in the hands of others, and she still dared to boast so shamelessly. What did she mean by tired of living? She was the one who was in a difficult situation now, wasn't she? GC had been a tyrant in the undersea abyss for so many years. She had lived a good life and had many husbands. She had never suffered like today. First, he was fed poison, and then he was hung up and beaten in front of everyone. How could this not ignite the flames of depression in her heart? Let go of our great lord. A trembling old man stepped forward and pointed at Mo Lien as he bellowed, "You're blaspheming our grand leader. You, how dare you, how dare you?" The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal glanced at him. In fact, they had already snuck into the large karst cave of the city lord's mansion 2 days ago. During this period, they had also encountered 1 or 2 guards. Relying on the password given by Omuri, they managed to survive several times. But for some reason, the password seemed to have changed today, therefore, they were exposed. Of course, it wouldn't be much of a problem if they were exposed. After all, as long as they were strong enough to crush the crowd, everything else wouldn't be a problem. After 2 days of secret contact, they discovered a very funny phenomenon. The citizens of the Sin Kingdom seemed to have been brainwashed, and they worshipped GC. Therefore, even if the distribution of resources was very unfair, and the food they found was severely exploited by the Great Lord, they still mindlessly showed a very respectful attitude to the Great Lord. They had seen this old man before them when they were worshipping in the sinkhole. He should be an old resident of the Sin Kingdom. Mo Lien raised her hand, and a sword light flashed. Chapter 4893. High Lord GC's left ear fell off, dripping with blood. The graceful Great Lord was stunned for about 3 seconds before she let out a scream so sharp that it pierced the eardrums of others. She had never thought that the man behind her, who did not show his face, would cut off one of her ears with a single move. From now on, she would be a beauty with 1 less ear. With such a fatal flaw in her body, how could she look at herself in the mirror in the future? High Lord GC, who had always prided herself on being perfect, couldn't accept this fact. The piercing scream lasted for a few seconds before it was extinguished by Yuan Shichen's slap. So noisy. Yuan Shichen casually glanced at the woman and turned to face the citizens of the Kingdom of Sin, who had calmed down in an instant. You guys saw it. If you speak any more nonsense, your High Lord will have 1 less thing on her. It could be her ear, her nose, her eyes, or her mouth. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal circled around High Lord GC with a smile. The sharp dagger between his fingers slid gently across the trembling woman's face. High Lord, your left and right are not symmetrical now. High Lord GC couldn't help but tremble. In a state of inexplicable horror, she couldn't help but cry out in a trembling voice, You. Stop, stop. Stop, stop. You guys, want. What do you want? TSK, wouldn't it have been better if we cooperated earlier? The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal kept the thin, sharp dagger in his sleeve and looked at High Lord GC with a smile. Tell me first, how did you block the realm suppression? No, how would we know, no. In the blink of an eye, GC's other ear was cut off by the venerable Peach Blossom Immortal as soon as she said that. Shenwu couldn't help but cover his eyes with his hand. Seeing this, the snake man couldn't help but sneer at him. Weren't you imprisoned by this female overlord for a while? Now that you see her miserable state, could it be that you sympathize with her? No such thing. Then why did you cover your eyes with your hands? Zhualanshan snorted with disdain. If it was me, I would first go up and slap her twice, then cut off her tongue and mouth. You little human, being so soft-hearted, you will definitely suffer a great loss in the future. Shenwu knew that the human snake's words were crude but not crude. What he said was not completely unreasonable. He had been a soft-hearted person since he was young. Even after embarking on the path of cultivation, he didn't seem to have changed much. Because of his soft-heartedness, he had suffered countless losses. However, he could not completely get rid of this bad habit. Senior is right. Chen Wu nodded. He cupped his hands and bowed. Junior will definitely correct this bad habit of his. Snake Man glanced at him and crossed his arms. Then, he turned to look in the direction of the venerable Peach Blossom Immortal. You think we're desperate to know? The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal sneered. Even if you don't say it, our cultivation levels are not suppressed by the rules of this place. We're just curious. I'll say it. I'll say it. In the moment of hesitation, both of her ears were cut off. The viciousness and mercilessness of these men made GC fearful. She hurriedly revealed the truth with trembling lips. Chapter 4894. Behind my bedroom, there's a sinkhole that's connected to the ancient array. I swear that everything I said is true. There's a holy treasure in the center of the array. I don't know if it's what I think it is. I suspect that the natural realm suppression here is actually caused by this array. The so-called heavenly Tao law is probably formed by this holy treasure. Including the exit of the abyss of the sacrificial sea, it's probably blocked by the array. But I've studied it for many years and still couldn't find a way to break this array. We can't get out at all. Previously, the entrance of the abyss of the sacrificial sea was sealed by the aristocratic families. After a year, the seal was finally lifted. Who would have thought that there would be a ferocious beast guarding the exit? We fiddled with it for a long time, burning it with fire and stabbing it with ice thorns. Who would have thought that the holy beast would fall into a deep sleep and didn't react at all? It thought that our attacks were all child's play. Mo Lien and He-Chin were speechless. So how deep was Wulanshan's sleep? Others were using all kinds of attacks to hit his tail, but this guy could still sleep. The snake man touched his nose awkwardly and coughed lightly. You can't blame me. It's just too boring to stay in this broken place. What else could he do besides hibernating? As long as he hibernated, he could slowly recover the essence, energy, and spirit that he lost. If he hibernated for a few decades, he could recover all the holy power and vitality that he lost in the previous battle. Why wouldn't he do it? He couldn't get out either. There was a large restriction above. It was a restriction barrier created by the aristocratic families of the River of Forgetfulness. In addition, there were many people guarding above. It was blocking the exit of the citizens of the Kingdom of Sin, but even if he made way for them, they wouldn't be able to break through the barrier and walk out of the undersea abyss, right? So it was his fault. A bunch of baffling people. Mo Lien ignored Wulanshan, who interrupted and asked directly. Holy treasure. That's right. I suspect that it's a saint artifact that has already formed its own saint spirit. Mo Lien's eyes lit up. She thought to herself, a sacred tool that can form a holy spirit is basically one of the best in the world. Among the saint tools, only 1 in 10,000 could form a holy spirit on its own. From this, one could see how rare and precious it was. Lead the way. Mo Lien unceremoniously tied him up with a spirit-binding rope and tugged hard. Lead the way. GC was tripped by an elegant floor-length dress and almost fell down. Mo Lien had already tossed the spirit-binding rope to Chen Wu. Shen Wu subconsciously grabbed the rope and pulled on GC's body that was tilting to the side. When the great leader turned around, her beautiful eyes immediately widened. You were the one from before, little one. Kid. She had a very deep impression of this brat. It was a kind of hatred that came from not being able to get what she wanted. This brat didn't want to be with her no matter what. In the end, he would rather be taken to the deprivation sinkhole by her than give in to her. Since she was destined to not be able to get this man, then no one else would be able to get him in this life. That was exactly what GC was thinking when she ordered her lackey to send Shenwu on his way. But now, Shenwu was actually still alive. Chapter 4895. Yet, she was on the verge of death. Things in this world were truly complicated and ever-changing. In the past, GC would never have believed that she would one day be reduced to such a miserable state. Old Zhang, what should we do now? Several natives of the Sin Kingdom surrounded the old man who was worshipping in the sinkhole and secretly rubbed their palms anxiously. The old man trembled as he took a few more steps forward and knelt down. He clasped his hands together and bowed to the sky. He shouted at the top of his lungs, "Heavens above, you can't treat GC like this. If it weren't for GC leading us to build a city and a home here, we would have died long ago. GC is our benefactor. What do you outsiders want to do to the High Lord?" Mo Lien glanced at him coldly. "Don't act like you have a deep grudge. You only have yourself to blame. Over the years, many people have died in your hands. You gutter rats, what right do you have to negotiate with me? Let's go." Mo Lien reprimanded coldly. Shenwu immediately straightened his body and pulled GC. "Lead the way." GC took a deep breath, pursed her lips, and said, "I've said what I should say. As long as I take you to the center of the array, you will let me go, right? You don't have the right to negotiate with us." Yuan Shichen smiled and shook her finger at her. "I advise you to lead the way and stop talking nonsense. Unless you want to lose something on your face." GC shuddered. The more she looked at these ordinary-looking young men and middle-aged men, the more they looked like monsters from hell. They were ugly, but their hearts were even uglier. How could there be such a monster in this world? Snake Man secretly glanced at GC and asked Yuan Shichen, "Is that woman cursing us in her heart?" The look in his eyes was strange, as if he was looking at something dirty. Yuan Shichen reached out and pulled him up. He followed up and said indifferently, "She's cursing you." GC's so-called sleeping palace was actually just a large cave that had been pieced together by a few caves. Considering the harsh living conditions here, the extent of this woman's extravagance could be said to have reached a point that made one's hair stand on end. Small holes were chiseled into the walls on both sides of the cave. Round gemstones of various colors were embedded in the holes. The multicolored lights connected into a line, and these underwater gems emitted the purest and most transparent light. Mo Lien suddenly raised her hand, and a few dumb-looking mechanical puppets suddenly appeared in front of everyone. "Collect. Be gentle." With a swipe of his hand, he took out a few gaudy cloth bags with ink-colored lotus flowers embroidered on them and tossed them to the golems. After the group of golems received the order, they immediately turned around and walked over together, starting to get busy. Dig out the various round gemstones on the cave walls. Hu Shichen was speechless. The Snake Man was dumbfounded. He couldn't help but glance at Lord Mo Lien. What is he doing? This was daylight robbery. Could this guy be any more shameless? He had painstakingly collected so many shells, pearls, and gemstones of the underwater abyss, but they all ended up in the hands of this shameless guy. Don't leave anything out. That box. Chapter 4896. The ruby on the box is not bad. Forget it. Don't bother if you can't take it off. Take it along with the box. Everyone was speechless. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal's mouth twitched. He couldn't help but facepalm. My heavens, look at how chow this trash's daily actions had led Imo Lien that trash astray. Wasn't he supposed to be a serious and cold crown prince? What had he become now? You. Great Overlord GC's eyes rolled back. She fainted from anger. Imo Lien glanced at her. Then, she pointed at a golem and said, "Slap her." That golem walked forward in a daze. Without a word, it slapped Great Overlord GC's tender face twice. Pfft! Great Overlord GC, who woke up, spat out a mouthful of blood. She was so angry that she fainted again. Oh my god. Imo Lien is really capable. She actually made Great Overlord GC faint twice in a row. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal supported himself against the wall, but he staggered and nearly lost his footing. He cursed inwardly, "It's over." Sir Chow has definitely led Imo Lien further and further down the path of evil. What does it mean to be marked by the company one keeps? This is probably it. Shenwu tugged on the spirit-binding rope and pulled Great Overlord GC up from the ground. The golem raised its black stone arm and slapped GC twice, waking her up from her stupor. "Continue leading the way." Imo Lien's emotionless and cold voice entered Great Overlord GC's ears. Her entire body quivered, and her legs couldn't help but tremble. If she dared to faint again, Imo Lien would definitely let her have a taste of the 18 slaps. Great Overlord GC didn't need to look in the mirror to imagine how swollen her face was right now. Tears streamed down her face. She had never been so angry in her life. Why didn't she explode from anger? For so many years, she had been used to living in the undersea abyss. How could she accept such treatment? "If she cries again, I'll gouge her eyes out," Imo Lien said coldly. GC's pitiful tears welled up in her eyes. She did her best to hold them back. At this moment, if GC could howl towards the sky, she would definitely cry out bitterly, "It's so hard to live, just how unlucky must you be to encounter such a fiendish star that didn't give you any reason at all." He Shurchin face-bombed again. "Bro, you're too cruel." Imo Lien was a typical example. He was full of love and patience when it came to his wife, but when it came to other people, he would be all kinds of irritated and long-winded, so shut up. What an emotional guy. Heechin pursed his lips. GC bitterly shed a few tears, but in the end, he impatiently scolded her. He didn't even allow her to cry crazy. This extremely vile behavior was simply outrageous. Great Overlord GC's two noodle legs trembled as she led them through the winding karst cave for less than half an hour. Pushing aside the barrier blocking the entrance of the karst cave, GC led everyone out of her bedroom. She pointed at the deep square pit in front of them. It's right there. I can't get close. If I go over, I'll be thrown out." As soon as she finished speaking, she found that her head was moving forward. She was kicked out by someone. Dong! A loud sound rang out. Great Overlord GC crashed into a transparent barrier. Chapter 4898. These citizens of the Sin Kingdom all had a look of disbelief on their faces. They looked at each other suspiciously. One of them suddenly roared. "Old Joe, is it you? You sneaked in and took away the sacred artifact. You already had the heart to steal the sacred artifact." "What? Don't slander me. Who took away the sacred artifact? I haven't even seen what the sacred artifact looks like. Have you seen the sacred artifact before? What does the sacred artifact look like? Tell me." That person snorted embarrassedly. The sacred artifact is usually shrouded in a ball of light. Who can see it clearly? Okay, stop arguing. Let's see if the sacred artifact is still in the pit. Where is the shadow of the sacred artifact in the pit? That's right. This pit is obvious at a glance. It's basically, just when everyone was arguing, a child's little paw suddenly grabbed one of the people's shoes. The man was shocked. When he looked down, he saw a pale little paw on his shoe. He almost peed his pants on the spot. Ghost child. His awe lingered in the air. Before he could finish his words, he was sent flying by a strong force and fell heavily into the pit. Everyone was shocked by this unforeseen event and quickly took a few steps back. At the same time, they saw a naked 3-year-old child jumping up from the edge of the pit. His little hands and feet moved nimbly. He jumped onto the foot of a practitioner and stepped on it. His little body jumped up 1 or 2 meters. She raised her leg and kicked the mouth of the unlucky cultivator. His messy roar in the wind was completely stopped in the deep pit. Everyone stared dumbfoundedly at the unlucky practitioner who was kicked by the child. This guy was like a kite with a broken string. He flew into the pit and fell head first. With a cracking sound, no one knew if his teeth were broken or his chin was broken. He was in so much pain that he covered his face with both hands and rolled back and forth in the pit. When the others saw this, they hurriedly retreated. Each of them stared at the lively little brat who was running back and forth around the crowd as if they were looking at a monster. This little demon ran 1 round and kicked 2 people flying, then ran another round and kicked a few more people flying. After a few laps, the pit was filled with wailing unlucky people. Outside the pit, only Mo Lien, He Jichen and a few others had not been poisoned. The little rascal scampered around and stopped in front of Mo Lien. He tilted his little head and looked up at her. Puffing his cheeks, he scolded, "Who are you?" Yuan Shichen restrained himself and coughed lightly. A sacred artifact spirit transformation. How dare you? The child put her hands on her hips and angrily rebuked, "Where did this mountain spirit come from? How dare you be so rude to me? Call me Lord Guangguang." Hu Shichen was speechless. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal smiled at him and waved his hand. Lord Guangguang ran to the venerable Peach Blossom Immortal's side with his bare little body. Before he could speak, the smiling man turned hostile and mercilessly knocked him on the head. "Tell me, what kind of divine weapon are you?" The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal reached out and picked up the little ghost. "If you don't tell me, I'll beat you back to your original form." "How dare you?" The little fellow let out an angry shriek. He struggled with his little arms and legs and said angrily, "How dare you be so rude to Lord Guangguang? I'm warning you. Hurry up and release Lord Guangguang. Otherwise, I'll make you." Chapter 4900. What are you doing? You! The man called Old Zhou gritted his teeth and shouted. When he saw Mo Lien's cold face, he swallowed the rest of his words. Although the middle-aged man in front of him looked ordinary, his pair of phoenix eyes were especially frightening. It was so cold that it made people fearful. "Quick, look, it's a sacred weapon, a sacred weapon!" Someone shouted. Everyone's gaze was attracted to him. A ball of light appeared at the bottom of the pit. It was so bright that people couldn't help but reach out to block their eyes. If they continued to stare at the ball of light, they would immediately go blind. Yu Qin swung his hand and used a vine whip to whip it, but it failed to whip away the ball of light. Instead, it allowed the ball of light to roll a few feet along the vine and hang in the middle of the pit. It was like a radiation source, so bright that people couldn't open their eyes. "This light is too dazzling." "Yeah, what is this sacred weapon?" For so many years, we have been trying to figure out what it is, but we haven't been able to see it clearly. Old Joe sighed and said, "It seems that I have no fate to see its true appearance in this lifetime." That's not necessarily true. Another person stammered, "With those sirs here, I think that we might really see the true appearance of the sacred weapon today." But this sacred weapon probably had no fate with them. With so many experts here, it was impossible for them to snatch the sacred weapon. The sacred weapon had already formed a sacred spirit and had its own consciousness. Among these people, the only ones who could catch the sacred weapons were definitely not ordinary cultivators like them. Sigh, what a pity. Old Joe and the others cursed in their hearts. Mo Lien raised her hand and pointed. A cluster of burning sacred fire suddenly fell into the pit. It circled around the ball of light and rolled out black hot flames. Great feudal Lord G.C., who had been lying on the ground pretending to be dead, couldn't help but widen her eyes. She shouted in her heart, "Black fire, it's actually a black sacred fire. Damn, who the hell is this person? Why did he come to the bottom of the sacrificial sea abyss?" The sacred fire burned the ball of light and peeled it off, revealing the true form of the sacred weapon inside. This is... Old Joe and the others widened their eyes in shock as they looked at the original form of the saint artifact that had been peeled off. Their expressions were filled with disbelief. "Actually, it's a mirror. It's a mirror." Everyone shouted. What mirror is this? It looks very ordinary." It was indeed very ordinary. Right now, in front of everyone, suspended high in the air, was a small handheld mirror. The edges of the ink-colored mirror were engraved with fine markings. It was a small mirror that seemed a little too small to hold in one's hand. It was actually an ancient saint weapon that could form a saint spirit. This type of saint artifact was not a man-made weapon. Instead, it was a natural artifact that had been exposed to the light of time. "How dare you!" Lord Guangguang, who was in Ji Chen's arms, opened and closed his small mouth as he angrily rebuked, "Ignorant humans, what kind of expression is that?" He actually dared to look at Master Guangguang with a suspicious gaze. He must be tired of living. Mo Yingchen sneered. Just as he was about to speak, he suddenly saw the air fluctuate slightly. Jojo's small face suddenly appeared among the ripple-like phantoms. "What are you doing?" Arbor roared at the floating phantoms in front of him. "It's been so long and you still haven't come back. What are you waiting for?" Chapter 4901. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal touched his ordinary youthful face, his eyes full of surprise. "I've already become like this, yet you can still recognize me." Jojo. Mo Lien pushed him away with one hand, a trace of joy flashing across his phoenix eyes. "Jojo, why did you suddenly appear?" He raised a slender finger and touched the ripple-like illusion in front of him. Arbor's eyes lit up. She pulled ancient Mo Lien over with one hand and raised her hand to pinch his face. Ancient Mo Lien started to cry pitifully. Mo Lien, why was this strange feeling of looking at oneself in the mirror and seeing one's own face cry so strange? Ma Shichen stared blankly for a moment, then suddenly burst into laughter. What the fuck? Mo Lien was actually crying in front of him. He was crying, ha 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 ha. It was Mo Lien, it was that high-spirited and insufferably arrogant bastard. He was actually crying. Arbor poked ancient Mo Lien's face and said crisply, "Hubby, did you know? The ancient Mo Lien seal in your body is incomplete. I found half of ancient Mo Lien's soul in the Pond Lotus Sacred Land. That's how I was able to connect him to the half of your soul in your body. Look, doesn't he look exactly like you?" Arbor felt that the ancient Mo Lien in front of her was like a large wooden doll, being manipulated by others. It was very comical. Mo Lien looked at his wife speechlessly, then looked at her with a pitiful expression. Jojo. The way his wife had pinched ancient Mo Lien just now, it was as if she was pinching an idiot. It was extremely infuriating. Why was his wife so mean? She must have purposely squeezed the ancient black lotus until it cried why. Mo Lien's head was filled with questions. His wife was really scary. His wife had actually been secretly harboring bad intentions. She wanted him to cry and scream. What a bad person. On the side, Ji Chen was laughing uncontrollably. He glanced at Mo Lien and remarked, I didn't expect that the Crown Prince Mo, who has always been wise, and mighty, actually didn't even know that the ancient Black Lotus seal was incomplete. What a retard. Ha 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 ha. Mo Lien turned her head and glared fiercely at him. Don't think that just because he didn't finish his sentence, he didn't know that this guy was secretly mocking him. Pfft. Ma Yingchen tried to hold back her laughter, but she couldn't. She laughed out loud cheerfully. Do you need help? Help your ancestors. Mo Lien glared at him again before turning her head to look at Arbor, which was faintly discernible in the water ripples. Jojo, why did you go to the Pond Lotus sacred realm? Arbor stopped joking and stared at her husband. After a long pause. Just when Mo Lien thought that his wife was finally going to talk about serious matters with him. His wife deliberated before saying, it's a long story. Yuan Shichin, Mo Lien, it's me who shouldn't have had such high expectations for my wife. She wasn't cut out for telling stories. The little stoic looked at Rotten Peach Blossom with a taut face before looking at Jojo's lotus. She harumphed and said, you guys actually had so much fun in the undersea abyss that you forgot home. Of course not. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal hastily waved his hand. We missed you so much, Jojo. Mo Lien missed you every day and was constantly worried about whether you ate your fill. Arbor's eyes brightened. I ate quite well. Everyone, she suddenly thought of something and said joyfully, Jojo's lotus, let me tell you. Chapter 4902. How dare you? Right at this moment, Lord Guangguang, who had been ignored for a long time, suddenly let out a loud shout. It was a pity that he was small and weak, and his voice was also childish, which really did not have any majesty. Arbor's gaze finally fell on the child and He Chen's arms through the water ripples illusion. Who is this little brat? Who are you? How can you open up this space-time passage and appear here in the form of an illusion? The girl in this illusion was too strange. This place was extremely deep in the sea abyss, with its light congealing mirror as the heart of the array, an isolation array set up by the heavenly Tao. Logically speaking, no matter who it was impossible to come here in the form of a soul, and would definitely be isolated outside, but why did she? How dare you, female thief? Who are you to the heavenly Tao? Arbor stared at the little brat with a stupefied expression, staring at him through the screen. If this little brat was in front of her at this moment, she would definitely pull him over and give him a good beating. Do you know how to speak human language? Who is a female thief? Who is a female thief? Your whole family is female thieves. Speak. You are the heavenly Tao. Ah. Lord Guangguang raised his hand to cover his bald head, turning his little face to stare at He Chen with grief and indignation. How dare you, a junior, be so rude to Lord Guangguang? Ridiculous. Despicable. Extremely rude. He Chen raised his hand to pat his smooth head. Shut up, you. So long-winded, didn't he see that his Lord Jojo's pair of watery eyes were already starting to emit fire? You dare to tell Lord Guangguang to shut up? Lord Guangguang said with a face full of anger. He Chen looked at him speechlessly. This fellow actually dared to call himself Lord in front of Lord Jojo. Was he looking for a beating? Who is this little brat? Jojo, he is the Holy Spirit of the sacred weapon, light congealing mirror. Mo Lien raised his hand and held the child in his hand. What do you think? Arbor blinked and subconsciously raised her hand to touch her belly. She did not know if it was her misconception, but when her husband brought the light congealing mirror Holy Spirit over, her little belly seemed to inexplicably warm. Could it be that my baby is interested in this light congealing mirror? A strange light flashed through Arbor's mind. He immediately nodded expressionlessly and said, "It's pretty good. Let's keep it first." Everyone was speechless. You're talking about a saint spirit as if it's nothing. Keep it. Do you think I'm collecting trash? Master Guangguang immediately understood Arbor's words. Luin Yuan's eyes were filled with anger as she said, "Audacious woman, don't think that I'll contract with you just because you're pretty. My contract also depends on fate. You and me. They were not meant to be. Don't force it." The corners of Ma Shichen's mouth twitched, and he quickly suppressed the urge to burst into laughter. I can't take it anymore. It's so fucking painful. Why did he feel like this condensing mirror Holy Spirit was a retard? Could he be any more childish and shameless? Arbor looked at the Holy Spirit of the light congealing mirror in astonishment. He thought to himself, this Holy Spirit actually doesn't like Lord Jojo. Little guy, you're pretty good. Arbor suddenly raised her hand and placed it on her belly. This time, she really felt a wave of heat drifting over. It wasn't her imagination. Lord Jojo's eyes brightened. He rubbed his belly and lowered his head to mutter, "Don't worry, baby. Your father is keeping this light congealing mirror. I'll give it to you later." Could it be that her baby had formed a vague self-awareness at this time? Wasn't this perception a little frightening? Mo Lien, who was looking at Jojo through the water ripples, only saw his wife mutter to herself. Chapter 4903. Because of the water ripples, he could only see Lord Jojo's upper body and did not see her rubbing her stomach. Arbor raised her head and looked at her husband. She said happily, "Jojo's lotus, keep this light congealing mirror and give it to me later." Mo Lien quickly nodded. "Chow chow, I also found a large batch of multicolored underwater gemstones for you. Do you like them?" Multicolored underwater gems. Arbor's eyes lit up again. She was overjoyed. She loved shiny things the most. Her husband was indeed the best to Jojo. Hastily nodding her small head, Xiaomu hastily asked, "Hubby, when are you coming back? We'll be out soon after we break this isolation array. Jojo, wait for me at the River of Forgetfulness. Don't run too far." "Okay, I'll wait for you at the River of Forgetfulness." Arbor added in her heart. "I'll wait for you at the entrance of the sacrificial sea abyss where you disappeared." "I won't run too far." The scene in front of her suddenly blurred. Arbor grabbed Mo Lien who was beside her. "What's going on? Why did the image suddenly become so blurry?" Logically speaking, half of ancient Mo Lien's soul was with her and the other half was in Mo Lien's consciousness. As long as they wanted to, they could communicate with each other without any hindrance. As long as Mo Lien's consciousness was strong enough, it was impossible to break the connection. As far as she knew, Mo Lien's consciousness should be about the same as hers. She should have at least reached the 12th level of consciousness. Under normal circumstances, it was impossible for such a sudden interruption of divine sense to occur. Unless something happened on his side. "Husband, what's going on over there?" Arbor wished she could pounce on the water ripples and use her hands to smooth out the floating creases and see the situation inside the water ripples. But the water ripples were shaking so violently that she could not tell what was going on over there. Her heart was in her throat when she did not know the situation. The relaxed and carefree atmosphere was destroyed in an instant. At the same time, Ma Shichin deftly shoved Emolien, causing him to stagger. He then turned around and hacked down with his sword, blocking a glowing red claw. Clang! The claw shook his wrist and made it slightly numb. GC, who was rolling and crawling on the ground, raised her eyes slightly and saw that the ordinary-looking young man's appearance had suddenly changed under the roasting of a ball of fire. Her facial features, which were originally not very outstanding, seemed to have transformed into a butterfly. Little by little, they were reorganized and restored to their original beautiful appearance. GC's eyes were wide open. She opened her mouth and quickly turned to look at the ruthless middle-aged man. At this moment, there was no sign of the middle-aged man. The young man, who was holding a slender black sword, smirked. His eyes were sharp as he leaped to the side of the venerable Peach Blossom Immortal. "Why did you roll over here?" The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal pushed him without thinking. "Hurry up and scram. Don't get in the way here. You have estimated wrongly." Emolien's voice was cold, but her eyes were gloomy. The ancient suppression array created by the heavenly axiom is not to suppress the light-congealing mirror, but the ferocious beast sealed in the light-congealing mirror. Roar! A violent roar came from the light-congealing mirror. The light-congealing mirror Holy Spirit lay on Ma Yinchen's back, trembling. Her small hand grabbed his hair, and she said with a pale face, "Hurry, hurry. Hurry up and suppress it." Chapter 4904. "You cheater, you still have the nerve to yell here." The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal slapped his bald head. "Why didn't you say that the formation was suppressing this ferocious beast? If they had known earlier, they wouldn't have touched the array at all. Finding another way was much more reliable than fighting a 10,000-year-old ferocious beast. I just wanted to get rid of this formation. I didn't expect that chaos. You actually took the opportunity to escape. This retarded light-congealing mirror really killed him." The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal was furious. The light-congealing mirror Holy Spirit's two small hands were still tightly wrapped around his neck as it stuttered, "Quick, quick, protect Master Guangguang. Primal chaos is coming out." The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal felt as if 10,000 horses were galloping through his heart. "Hundun." Emolien frowned. Could it be the ancient ferocious beast, Hundun? Roar! The only response he got was half of a huge body peeking out from the small mirror. It had 6 legs and 4 wings, and it was as red as fire. It was the ferocious beast Chaos that was recorded in the records of mountains and rivers. For a moment, the small black mirror with fine lines hanging high in the air was surrounded and burning by a ball of raging flames. The Chaos ferocious beast walked out from the center of the mirror. It reached out with its crimson claws and slapped toward He Shichin again. He-chin dodged backwards and hurriedly pushed Emolien, who was beside her. The primordial chaos has removed the suppression array from the inside. Hurry, find a chance to leave immediately. Take good care of Jojo, Yuan Shichin instructed. Scram! Emolien held Raven Moon in his hand and glanced at him with a straight face. Go out and tell her yourself. Roar! The primordial chaos spread its 4 wings and covered the sky. Its roar shook the earth and mountains. The karst cave in front of them collapsed due to the tremors. Gravel rolled down, and smoke and dust filled the air. Shenwu tightly gripped his sword with both hands. He turned his head to take a look, his expression as if he had been struck by lightning. Seniors Wulan Mountain, what are you doing? The man and the snake shrank back and did not move forward. Now, he had returned to his human face and snake body form. His entire snake body was coiled tightly around the trunk of a nearby tree, pretending to be dead and motionless. Both of them were saint beasts. Why are you so far behind him? The difference was like heaven and earth. Look at the other beasts of chaos, then look at yourself. Don't you feel ashamed? Shenwu's gaze did not provoke the human snake. He was still lying on the tree trunk, pretending to be dead and motionless. He didn't show any intention of moving. If it was possible, he would grow on this tree forever, never to move an inch ever again. Roar, roar, roar. The chaos beast roared at Mo Lien and the others. He suddenly sucked in a breath. All of a sudden, a strong wind blew and sucked everyone forward. The natives of the Sin Kingdom were so scared that their faces turned ashen. He felt as if he was being sucked in by this fierce gust of wind, and he couldn't help but roll and crawl in that direction. Ah, 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 ah. Ah, ah. Shouts could be heard one after another. Great Feudal Lord GC's face was pale as she grabbed the long grass on the ground, trying to stabilize herself. However, the strong wind blew and she couldn't control her body at all. With a cry of surprise, she was already lifted up by the wind. She somersaulted 3 times and was sucked in. Go! Yuan Shichen didn't hesitate and slapped Mo Lien. Chapter 4905. GC's eyes were red with anger. She tried her best to grab onto something to control her body, but she couldn't resist the suction force of the strong wind at all. In the end, she screamed and flew out of her hands. Following the strong suction force, she rolled forward. Jichin sent Mo Lien out with a palm, but she fell back and was sucked in by the Chaos Beast at an even faster speed. The Chaos Beast's red body emitted a red glow. It squatted there and opened its mouth to reveal its fangs, waiting for its prey to come to its door. When the 2 Sin Kingdom cultivators were pulled to its mouth by the suction force, their eyes were wide open in fear. The primal Chaos Beast lazily moved its mouth and snapped the 2 cultivators from the Kingdom of Sin into 2 halves. GC let out a shrill scream as if she was struggling for her life. Her face turned as red as a pig's liver, and it was so twisted that it was impossible to look at her directly. A beam of cold light flashed across the mouth of the Chaos Ferocious Beast and collided with its sharp teeth, making a loud noise. The Chaos Beast opened its mouth and roared. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal's slender body slid past Great Feudal Lord GC and was sucked into the beast's esophagus at the speed of light. The light-congealing mirror Holy Spirit in his arms could not help but scream, "Ah! Lord Guangguang is dead because of you." Great Feudal Lord GC felt that her body was out of control. She followed the venerable Peach Blossom Immortal into the beast's mouth. When the 2 rows of teeth closed, she passed through and slid down the Chaos Beast's esophagus. Great Feudal Lord GC's face was ashen. She thought to herself, "My life is over." At the same time, Mo Lien flew far away after being slapped by Jichin. She stabilized herself with great difficulty. When she turned to look, she saw that the Chaos Beast had sucked in a large group of people. It did not care about the others and turned to walk into a large karst cave. Rotten Peach Blossom. Mo Lien chased after it and was suddenly stopped by a figure. This coward with a human face and a snake body was finally not hanging on the tree trunk as a specimen. Mo Lien pushed him away without hesitation. "Go away. Don't get in my way. You brat, don't be ungrateful." The snake man curled his lips and shouted, "Didn't I stop you for the sake of your little life? That's a 10,000-year ancient sacred beast. None of us are its match. If they rushed over to their deaths, they wouldn't even be enough to be swallowed whole. Don't you see how big its appetite is?" Mo Lien turned her head and stared at him. Suddenly, a black lotus appeared in her hand. In a split second, the fragments of the flowers and leaves turned into numerous shadows, flying toward the snake man. Hey, you, why can't you recognize the good intentions of others? You even attacked me. Hey, don't hit me, don't hit me. Zuo-Lan-Shan looked at Mo Lien, who suddenly attacked him with a dumbfounded expression. His face was full of disbelief. Didn't she see that there were only the two of them here? What good would it do for them to fight each other? Mo Lien was too lazy to talk nonsense with this snake man. She slapped him. The Raven Moon sword flashed continuously, forcing the snake man to take a few steps back. Bang, bang, bang. Upon receiving Mo Lien's command, the several dumb golems that were originally wandering back and forth on the side simultaneously surrounded them. The golems pushed him to the ground and pinned him down. Mo Lien's fists rained down on Zuo-Lan-Shan's face. Chapter 4906. Zuo-Lan-Shan was furious and wanted to fight back, but he found that his hands and snake tail were pressed to the ground by a few mechanical men. He couldn't move at all. What are you doing? Mo Lien. I'm warning you. Don't mess around. Zuo-Lan-Shan screamed bitterly, almost breaking through the clouds. Don't hit me, don't hit my face. Don't hit me. Don't hit me. What are you trying to do? I know. I'll go with you to save people, okay? Zuo-Lan-Shan was extremely depressed. He looked at Mo Lien with a bloody nose and a swollen face, his perfect expression completely cracked. Oh, where did this bastard with such a bad personality come from? Who exactly did he learn the method of beating someone up until they were convinced by his words? Mo Lien pulled Zuo-Lan-Shan up from the ground with a cold expression. Let's go. There was no time to lose. They had to leave immediately. The more they delayed, the more danger they would be in. Since the two of them came, they naturally had to go back together. Neither of them could go missing. Jojo's lotus. Arbor reached out to touch the illusion, wanting to see what was happening. However, in the blink of an eye, the water ripples dissipated in the air. It was so fast that no one had time to react. Lotus. Arbor's heart skipped a beat. She hurriedly turned to look at ancient Mo Lien. She saw that guy's body was faintly discernible. He looked at her with a confused expression in his pure eyes. I feel so tired. I don't think I can take it anymore. Sorry, I think I need to go into seclusion to rest. How are you? What's wrong with you? How can I help you? Arbor rushed over to support him. She stared at him anxiously and asked anxiously. I'm fine. I just feel a little tired. I feel like, before ancient Mo Lien could finish her sentence, she turned into a ray of light and shrunk to the size of a soul orb. She floated to Arbor's fingertip. Arbor was startled. He hurriedly reached out to grab it and put it into a brocade pouch. She was just a little flustered. The more confused she was, the more nervous she became. His mind was in a mess. How did Mo Lien's spirit turn into a soul bead? Was it because he was very weak? What exactly happened on his side? Was he and Rotten Peach Blossom in danger? Don't tell me Arbor didn't dare to continue thinking about it, because she felt that the more restless she was, the more flustered she was, and the more she couldn't think of a reason. She had to calm herself down. But that kind of irritable and flustered feeling was uncontrollable. Her eyes felt sour and astringent, as if something was about to come out. No, how could she be so weak? They would definitely be fine. She mustn't scare herself. Arbor took a deep breath and turned her head to look at Mo, who was standing beside her in a daze. Mo, let's go out first. Xiao Mu stored the strand of soul that had been meditating on the lotus flower without opening its eyes from beginning to end into her storage talisman. She turned and pulled Mo's sleeve. Let's go. But these lotus flowers, Moe reluctantly turned back to look at them. Arbor slapped her forehead. Right. She had almost forgotten about such an important matter. No matter what, she had to refine the pond lotus sacred realm first. This way, she could leave the secret realm ahead of time. Chapter 4907. On the other side, there was a very narrow mountain path amidst the mountain fog. Duo Shanmei and her people were fighting a bloody battle with the corpses of the fishermen. However, the more corpses they killed, the more corpses appeared from the end of the mountain path. Everyone was held back here and had to carry out a thorough purge of the corpses. Why do I feel like there's no end to these things? A few duo clansmen couldn't help but shout in panic. The more corpses they killed, the more corpses there were, but they had already used up more than half of their spiritual power. They couldn't continue fighting like this for a long time. Duo Shanmei raised her sword and chopped off the head of a corpse puppet. She glanced at the mountain path. Don't just stand here. We have to retreat as we kill. Once we enter the mountain, there will be something to cover us, she panted as she chopped down another corpse puppet. Then, she took a deep breath and said, cover us for a while, and we can recover our strength. Let's go. Murong Fei made a prompt decision and retreated into the mountain fog with her two brothers. The 20 or so practitioners of the Mu family hurriedly followed the Murong family and retreated into the mountain. These damned corpse puppets, however, continued to surround and attack everyone in a frenzy. Do Xinwu was already regretting it. She didn't expect that the fishermen she saved in Haibin village had already been infected with the corpse poison and now they had all mutated. If she knew they were so useless, she wouldn't have helped them come to Wangchuan. What a waste of her kindness. Everyone be careful, don't get bitten by the corpse puppets. Eldest young master Do, second young master, please help treat the injured. All disciples listen up, follow the Murong family, we're going into the mountain. Yun Yunji looked at the mountain with a melancholy face. Little Shimmy said she would be back in 4 hours. How long has it been? I don't know if something happened to her. Murong Fei was also very worried, but she knew it was useless to worry now. Since these corpse puppets were endless, the best way was to take the initiative to avoid them. Go! Up the mountain. Everyone follow, don't fall behind. The group of people fought and retreated, retreating into the mountain fog. At this moment, everyone felt the ground under their feet shake. In an instant, it seemed like the whole ground was shaking. What's going on? Why do I feel like the scenery in front of me keeps swaying? Don't you feel the same way? The tree in front of me is really swaying. It's not the tree that's shaking, it's your entire body. Everyone looked at each other. Sure enough, they found that the other party was swaying uncontrollably, unable to control themselves at all. Duo Shanmei tried her best to stabilize herself. What's going on? Why was the earth shaking? Could it be that another ferocious beast is coming out? Shut up. The others all rolled their eyes at her. The ichthyosaur from before had already caused all of them to be on the brink of death. If something like a holy beast were to appear now, they would really be powerless to reverse the situation. Miss Murong, why aren't you nervous at all? What do I have to be nervous about? Anyway, it's not like I'm the only one swaying. Everyone is swaying. Everyone was speechless. What he said seemed to make sense. Are we still going up the mountain in this situation? A member of the Duo clan could not help but ask. Why are we still going up the mountain? Haven't you noticed that the scenery in front of you is slowly fading away? Chapter 4908. Is that so? The mystic realm is about to collapse, someone suddenly shouted. Most people hadn't considered this before. Now that they heard this, realization dawned on them. Duo Shanmei's expression tightened. The mystic realm is about to collapse. Then what should we do? Will we be spat out by the mystic realm or be killed? We won't be killed, right? Someone muttered stutteringly before quickly shaking his head. We won't. Eldest young Sir Chin curled his lips. Why are you panicking? You're all like headless flies when you encounter such a small matter. Don't worry, it should be fine. We should be able to get out very soon. Eldest young sir, is what you say true? Several Duo clan members stole a glance at him in disbelief. Seeing this young sir's calm expression and relaxed expression, they couldn't help but feel more at ease. Murong Fei raised her brows. Why the heck did she not know? She actually had a strange premonition that the collapse of this mystic realm seemed to have a lot to do with her little junior sister. After all, her little junior sister had been missing for so long. Who knew what she was doing in secret? It seems to have stopped. Do Tingqi heaved a sigh of relief and patted his chest. Fortunately, it seems to be a false alarm. Just as he finished speaking, his entire body suddenly fell down. As a result, he was completely defenseless. He instinctively let out a cry of surprise before disappearing from everyone's sight. Duo Shanmei and the rest widened their eyes in horror, as if 10,000 horses were galloping through the depths of their hearts. They hadn't even freaking finished speaking, and he was already gone. The scenery before them was like layers of fine silk, twisting and turning. Everyone couldn't help but sway uncontrollably as they cried out in alarm. Eldest young Sir Chin's expression remained calm as he waved the folding fan in his hand. He said with a grin, "No need to panic. We're just going out a little earlier. Take care to protect yourselves. Just don't get warped by the space here." What do you mean? Could it be that the space would warp when they went out? Would they die if they were careless? Damn it, who on earth made this happen? How could a mystic realm collapse all of a sudden? Elder brother, be careful. Murong Fei took a deep breath, she felt her body move, and was pulled out uncontrollably. The scenery in front of her eyes changed, and she once again stepped onto the beach of Lotus Pond Island that was covered with fine gauze. Layers of waves approached from afar, slapping against the nearby reefs, making gurgling sounds. After the two Duo clan members were teleported out, they stood there in a daze. When they heard the sound of heavy breathing from behind them, they turned around and saw two zombies with rotting flesh hanging from their faces. They were rapidly charging towards them from behind. The two Xiuzhe raised their swords and chopped off the head of the corpse puppet. They exhaled deeply. The two of them gripped their swords and raised their heads to look ahead. They saw the little stoic standing in midair, and they didn't know when she had appeared in that place. Floating in front of her was a sparkling and translucent orb. Under its transparent luster, one could see something flowing slowly within the orb. Lotus. It was a lotus. There are so many lotuses. The Duo clan member pointed at the orb in front of Arbor, unable to hide his surprise. Do Axian sucked in a breath of cold air and tugged at her brother's sleeve. It was the Pond Lotus Sacred Realm. This damn girl refined the Pond Lotus Sacred Realm. What ability did he have to actually refine the entire mystic realm? Chapter 4909. When Do Tingqi fell out of the mystic realm just now, he was fiercely frightened, and his expression was still somewhat absent-minded. He only regained his senses after his sister tugged at him a few times. May, your throat hasn't recovered yet, please stop. Do Ting-chi stuttered out a few words, but was immediately pushed away by Do Axian-woo. How could her eldest brother's personality be so soft? How could he be qualified for the position of the Do family's patriarch in the future if he didn't fight for anything? He wouldn't really be willing to give the position of patriarch to those two things from the lower star domain, right? Despicable. Do Shinwoo saw that she couldn't get her eldest brother to budge and hastily walked forward. She stared icily at Arbor and involuntarily clenched her fists. Arbor floated in front of her with his eyes closed and that lustrous pond lotus heart floating in front of him. The more Do Shinwoo looked, the harder it was to restrain her excitement. The more she looked, the more she felt that if she didn't make a move now, when would she? The treasure had no owner, so it belonged to whoever snatched it. When she thought of this, her body suddenly moved. At the same time, she stretched out her right hand and spread her fingers, reaching for that orb that was extremely attractive to her. This was the refined mystic realm. If she, Do Shinwoo, could obtain such a heavenly abode, not to mention how much her strength would increase, just the 4 words portable divine realm would make people's hearts tremble and their blood vessels expand. If she could obtain this natural divine realm, she would naturally flourish in the Do family in the future. She might even be able to change precedent and become the first female patriarch in the history of the Do family. Do Shinwoo, whose heart was burning with passion, didn't notice that the little stoic's eyes were slowly opening. Do Shinwoo's fingers grabbed at the pond lotus heart and was about to grab this condensed heart of the mystic realm into her hands. Unexpectedly, that orb flew out with a whoosh and shot out of her reach like a catapult. Pond lotus sage realm. Do Shinwoo took a deep breath and stared at the orb. She didn't care about anything else. Just as she was rushing forward, everyone couldn't help but look at her as if they were looking at a weirdo. The Shuja below were doing their best to kill the corpse puppets, but this girl was like an idiot, suddenly attacking Chi Lien Axane. Did she think that they were all blind? That none of them could see the pond lotus heart hanging in the air? The reason why he didn't make a move was naturally because it was obvious that since the pond lotus sacred land had been refined by someone, it naturally belonged to the person who refined it. Could it be that he could change to another person midway and take you as his master? It's not like you're prettier than others. This method of highway robbery was too low-end, wasn't it? Do Axian-woo twisted her body in midair and flipped a few times. Her eyes were wide open as she raised her hand to catch the lotus pond core that was flying everywhere. This round bead seemed to be within reach, but every time she reached out to grab it, it would quickly slip away. It was so fast that she had no time to react. Do Axian-woo's eyes turned red, and a trace of anxiety flashed in her eyes. Everyone was fighting with the corpse puppets, and they only needed to raise their heads slightly to see that girl chasing after the pond lotus heart like a retard. Anyone with discerning eyes could see that the sentient heart of the mystic realm was teasing this girl. However, Do Shinwoo didn't notice it at all and continued to chase after the heart of the mystic realm, running back and forth in all directions. Chapter 49:10. Arbor opened his eyes. His eyes were like ice as he stared at Do Shinwoo, who was running all over the place. A sinister black light flickered in the depths of his eyes. When Do Shinwoo once again chased after the heart of the secret realm and arrived in front of her, Arbor decisively pointed at her. Do Shinwoo instantly felt a vast and mighty divine power cleave towards her. Without thinking, she hastily dodged to the side and leaped backwards. In the blink of an eye, the lustrous orb flew past her with a whoosh and abruptly landed in Arbor's hand. Do Shinwoo abruptly raised her head and glared at Arbor, her eyes practically spitting out raging flames. Unable to speak, Do Shinwoo could only stomp her feet as if venting her anger. She then pointed at Arbor and gestured with her hands and feet. Arbor didn't bother to look at her and directly put the heart of the secret realm back into his sleeve before turning to look at those zombies. Do Xinwu was so angry that her face turned ghastly white, and a sharp murderous aura surfaced on her face. From the beginning until now, she had continuously suffered at Arbor's hands and been unlucky. She couldn't endure this kind of rage anymore after accumulating until now. Younger sister. Do Tingqi saw that the situation wasn't good and hastily rushed forward, grabbing his younger sister's arm. He glanced nervously at Do Xinwu and advised softly, "Younger sister, don't get into a conflict with the Grand Crown Princess." When Do Xinwu saw her older brother's submissive appearance, she couldn't help but get angry. Other older brothers would help their younger sister, but her older brother couldn't help her at all. Instead, he liked to drag her down. Do Xinwu, had endured until now. Did she still need to endure? Miss, you can't be thinking of fighting with the little stoic, right? Ling floated over with a grin and glanced at Do Xinwu curiously. Let me give you a word of advice. You definitely aren't her match. It's important to know one's limits. When this little stoic became ruthless, even he felt a bit flustered inside, let alone this young lady who was merely a great spiritual master. Even if she rushed up, she wouldn't even last a single slap from the little stoic. Do Xianwu gasped for breath and suddenly threw herself forward. She opened her mouth and called out 4 words, "My treasure pearl." Arbor didn't even look at her. He felt a gust of wind coming at him. He covered his Vajra talisman with one hand and brushed it away mercilessly. What do you mean by yours? What do you have here? What a joke. They all belong to Jojo. Do Xianwu only felt a gust of wind blowing against her face, so much so that she couldn't even open her eyes. She suddenly felt a sharp pain on her left cheek as she was slapped so hard that she was sent flying. Ling's face was full of smiles as he hurriedly stepped to the side. He turned back to look at Miss Do, who had been sent flying, and shook his head speechlessly. See, he had already warned this Miss Do not to go up and ask for trouble, not to go up and ask for a snub. Yet, he refused to listen to the advice of his elders. He was really at a disadvantage. Ling chuckled as he turned his head, only to see the little stoic's figure rapidly descending. She held a club horizontally in her hand and smashed it towards the zombie horde without any explanation. Bang! The zombie horde was instantly torn to pieces by the little stoic's attack. Arbor's small face was cold and stern as he kicked 2 zombies towards Elder Steward Luo in passing. The zombies were dizzy and disoriented as they tripped and stumbled to their feet. Just as they were about to pounce at Elder Steward Luo, they hastily retreated a few steps and fled with their tails between their legs. Chapter 49:11. Arbor's gaze became incomparably ferocious in a split second, and without another word, he abruptly shot a handful of penetrating bone nails at old manager Luo. At the same time, the sharp weapon in his hand flashed. Get out of the way. Young Master Omega Kotoku had been paying attention to the little girl's movements the entire time, and he couldn't help but be shocked when he saw her actions. Bang! A huge tremor reverberated in this small part of Lotus Pond Island. Old manager Luo's complexion darkened as he stared at the huge crater 3 meters away that was blasted open by the divine power bead. This was really an unreasonable little lunatic. She would throw the god power bead at any random crowd without giving them any chance to explain. Could it be that she didn't know that divine power beads couldn't be thrown around carelessly? If he was really hit by the divine power bead, even with his cultivation, he would probably be in deep trouble. The 5th young master's beautiful face was a bit pale. She turned to look at old manager Luo's face, which was as black as the bottom of a pot, and then turned to look at Arbor, who was similarly frosty and silent with pursed lips. She couldn't help but be bewildered. Why was Jojo so emotional? They hadn't seen each other for several hours, so why did he attack the Chin Estates people as soon as he saw them? You scared me to death. Feather patted his chest and cried out pitifully, "Stoic, what are you doing? If you want to throw a corpse puppet, then throw one. Don't throw it at a crowd. This divine power bead can kill people." "Young Master Dugu, I think there's something wrong with your eyesight." Old Manager Luo couldn't put on that Mithraea Buddha-like face anymore, and he angrily said with a darkened face, "Just now, the Crown Princess attacked our Chin Estate. She threw the divine power bead at our Chin Estate's people. She wants us to die." "Yes." Arbor coldly answered with a single word. A severe light flashed in her hand, and a thunderclap sword that could cut through iron like mud and sever hair appeared in her hand. "Not only do I want you to die, I also want you to die without a proper burial ground." The pupils of young Master Omega Kotoku and the others contracted slightly, and they immediately saw the little stoic swatting down with a sudden thunder. The sword light was mixed with wisps of lightning as it charged towards the crowd. The rest of the people couldn't help but exclaim in their hearts, "Oh my God!" This facial paralysis was too frightening. How could he turn hostile just like flipping the pages of a book? He simply caught people off guard and had no time to react. Boom! A deep crack appeared on the ground. Arbor held his sword in his hand, and the light of thunder climbed along the blade, making a sizzling sound. What happened? Eldest young Sir Chin lowered his head to look at the large fissure in front of the Chin Estate, and his heart involuntarily skipped a beat. "Do you still want to continue pretending?" Arbor looked at him coldly. "The harpies have already gathered outside the island, haven't they? Let them come." The little crown princess shouted. She raised her sword slightly and pointed it at the people from the Chin Estate. "Shouldn't we get to know each other again? Young Master Qin Xian, Manager of Heavenly Fate." Ah! The disciples from the Mu clan, Murong clan, and other patrician families all looked at the people from the Chin Estate in astonishment. What was the little stoic saying? What manager of heavenly fate? Could it be that the little lady suddenly flared up at others not because of some other reason, but because these people from the Chin Estate standing in front of them were all from heavenly fate? Dotinchi trembled from head to toe, and he stammered, "Why, your crown princess, why could it be that? Why, you're mistaken." Chapter 49:12. This is the Chin Estate, the #1 aristocratic family in our divine continent. Yes, that's right. How could the Chin Estate have anything to do with heavenly fortune? At the very least, even if someone in the Chin Estate had sought refuge with heavenly fortune, it definitely wouldn't be that smiling and elegant eldest young master. That's right. The Chin Estate, how could the Chin Estate be heavenly fortune? Arbor ignored the noisy chatter around him and merely stared coldly at eldest young Master Chin before shifting his gaze to old steward Luo. "Aren't you going to reveal your identity? Things have already come to this point, there's no need to hide anymore." "Ha!" Old steward Luo sneered. Old steward Luo. Just as he was about to speak, he was stopped by eldest young Master Chin. "Young Master." Old steward Luo bowed in greeting. "Since she has already seen through our identities, there's indeed no need to hide anymore, right? Luo Qizhong, you speak too much nonsense." Second young Master Chin glanced at him coldly, and his 5 fingers swiftly condensed into a long whip of lightning. Without allowing for an explanation, he whipped it at old steward Luo's chubby old face. "Didn't you hear eldest brother tell you to shut up?" Second young master. Old steward Luo endured the pain and bowed. "Even if you and eldest young master are extremely unwilling, there's really no need to continue concealing this matter now that things have come to this. Murong Fei and the others were already stupefied. They glanced dumbly at eldest young Master Qin and the others. This was too horrifying. The Qin estate actually joined Heavenly Fortune. What did Jojo mean just now? The Qin estate's eldest young master was the head of Heavenly Fortune. Therefore, the Qin estate didn't join Heavenly Fortune at a later stage, and this eldest young master of the Qin estate had always been the head of Heavenly Fortune from start to finish. No, that couldn't be. Everyone cast bewildered glances in the direction of the Qin estate, sizing them up. Looking at Grand Duke Qin and Ziqin's second young masters, they truly looked like elegant young masters in a chaotic world. It was truly hard to associate them with those filthy zombies. Looking at those zombies and then looking at these young masters, it was truly too difficult. Jojo. Eldest young Master Qin suddenly chuckled softly and winked at her. Why are you so smart? You won't grow up. Xiao Mu expressionlessly looked at him. Although her expression was calm, she was heavily guarded on the inside. You can't catch me, she said coldly. Why do you say that? Master Old Steward Luo's young master's help, Old Steward Luo's young master. The old ghost's face was struck by a lightning whip, leaving a shallow scar from his left cheek to his chin. However, his expression didn't change, and his heart didn't skip a beat, as though the whip that the second young master had bestowed didn't land on his face at all. I'll do it myself, eldest young Master Qin said faintly, and his figure suddenly flashed in front of Arbor like lightning. Arbor had long been on guard against him. Seeing him flash in front of her, she pursed her lips and didn't speak, smashing a fist over. Boom! Eldest young Master Qin flicked his sleeves to block it. His small fist was like a diamond drill, and the power of his strike was abnormally fierce. You refined the Pond Lotus Sage realm just now, and now you're about to advance, right? What a coincidence. My Jojo. You can die now. Arbor swept her sword across. Chapter 49:13. Accompanied by the sound of wind, a lightning strike landed on eldest young Sir Qin's sleeve with a whoosh. The little stoic took a quick step and flipped in midair. At the same time, she flashed backward with a flying kick. Eldest young Sir Qin curled his lips and drawled, Jojo, if you run away, none of these people here will survive. Duo Shanmei and the others, who were fighting with the zombies, stiffened their weapons in their hands. They were well aware that this eldest young Sir of the Qin estate wasn't joking. Since everyone present already knew their true identities, then today's battle was unavoidable. The icy words spat out by this eldest young Sir of the Qin estate made people's hearts tremble uncontrollably. Duo Shanmei clenched her sword and hacked apart a zombie. Just as she turned around to speak, she heard several clansmen anxiously shout, "Oh no, eldest young miss, many harpies are flying in from outside the island." The little crown princess was right. Duo Shanmei and the others' expressions turned extremely unsightly in a split second. It looked like the Qin estate's eldest young Sir and his party were planning on keeping all of them here. It made sense when they thought about it. They definitely wouldn't allow anyone present to go out and spread the news recklessly. Jojo, why are you so disobedient? Eldest young Sir Qin sighed softly. Can't you be obedient? Arbor couldn't be bothered to waste words with this person. He used 1,000 lightning phantoms, and tens of thousands of lightning bolts scattered across the sky, directly blasting several enormous holes in the ground. Go, the little stoic shouted coldly. Murong Fei, Mu Jiating, and the others reacted extremely swiftly and directly activated a teleportation talisman matrix. With a whoosh, they swiftly disappeared from the scene in a flash of light. Ignorant and naive people. Luo Qizhong sneered. Our people control everything within a radius of 1,000 feet. Do you think you can teleport out? Jojo. Eldest young Sir Chin sighed. In your current situation, it's not suitable for you to fight with all your strength. How about we both stop at the same time? Fine. Sir Jojo harumphed. I'll believe you for the time being. I'll count to 3, and you and I will stop. Eldest young Sir Chin wanted to laugh and nodded with a "Amichem." Okay. I'll listen to you. 1, 2, 3. After Arbor shouted 1, 2, 3, and saw that eldest young Master Chin had indeed stopped, he sent out the third move of the 9 Heavens Thunderclap spell, 10,000 swords returning to origin with a swish. Everyone saw thousands of sword shadows converge into a large sword, which slashed towards eldest young Master Chin's chest. The swift and fierce sword was merciless. Junior, how dare you? Elder Luo exclaimed and hastily took a few steps forward. Jojo, you little liar, you're lying to me again. Eldest young Master Chin sighed, and a suit of holy armor swiftly covered his entire body. He stretched out his left hand, and a blood-red longsword suddenly appeared in his hand. Then, he instantly slashed out 100,000 meters of water light. In a split second, the huge sword phantom that Sir Jojo had swung out, which was rushing towards his chest, was completely destroyed. Arbor was stunned. It was rare to see this eldest young master make a move. Who would have thought that when he made a move, his cultivation level would be at the Saint Realm? Humph. This person who pretended to be a little white flower all day long and only knew how to ask Jojo to save his life when someone came knocking on his door was actually a transcendent god expert. Strike him to death, strike him to death, strike him to death. Arbor's small hand shook, and hundreds of thunder spirit talismans shot out. Although this wasn't enough to kill a transcendent god expert, it still caused everyone present to be flustered for a while. Damn it, the thunder spirit talismans suddenly exploded. Chapter 49-14. Luo Qizhong and the others instantly descended into chaos. They would be fools if they didn't dodge the lightning bolts descending from the sky one after another. Arbor took advantage of this chaos to turn around and glance coldly at eldest young Sir Chin. She suddenly flew up and leaped into the earth fissure. Qiao, eldest young Sir Chin, was startled. He didn't expect the little stoic to make such an unexpected move. Under the earth fissure, she's going into the sea. Luo Qizhong hastily pushed aside the lightning bolts and shouted angrily, "Hurry and stop her. Get out of my way." Young Sir Omega Kotoku kicked aside the people swarming to his side and then leaped down into the earth fissure. This little lady was too infuriating. Her brain turned quickly, and her thoughts were nimble and ever-changing. She was abominably wicked. No wonder she repeatedly destroyed the island during the battle earlier and created deep pits and fissures. As it turned out, she wanted to escape. She ran when she couldn't win and even chose to escape into the sea. If she was allowed to enter the sea, she would be like a fish in water. They probably wouldn't be able to catch up to her. Arbor jumped into the earth fissure. As she fell, she could faintly hear the sound of flowing water. Her judgment wasn't wrong. This place was indeed connected to an underground water vein. Very soon, she would be able to. When she heard the sound of the wind, Arbor looked up, and her expression changed slightly. She saw a black figure rushing toward her at extreme speed. Go to hell, you damn swindler who just won't leave. Arbor shook out the last 3 god power beads from her storage talisman and tossed them all at him. Boom, boom, boom. Loud noises reverberated in the narrow earth fissure. The stone fissure on both sides collapsed toward the middle and closed up, barely blocking Qin Xian's path. In the blink of an eye, Xiao Mu accelerated downwards at a speed comparable to light. Bam! Qi Naxian's face was filled with cold fury. She slapped away the stone wall in front of her and swiftly tore down the obstacles in front of her before swiftly chasing down the earth fissure. Soon, Sir Jojo would be able to enter the sea soon. Whoosh! A black figure flashed by and grabbed Arbor's arm as she jumped into the water. The little stoic only felt a burst of pain on her arm, and her entire body was pulled around by Sir Omega Kotoku in an irresistible position. Boom! The passageway below was shaken by the second young master's palm strike, causing rocks to roll and collapse. Meeting his pair of eyes that were as black as a serene pool and brimming with severity, Xiao Mu tightly pursed her lips and glared angrily. Get lost. Am I indulging you too much? Omega Kotoku grabbed her arm and said angrily, aren't you worried that you'll get hurt if you act so recklessly? Who's fooling around? Your whole family is fooling around. Arbor angrily tried to pull his arm back. It's none of your business whether I'm injured or not. Don't you think you've gone too far? What was this person trying to do by haunting them all the time? Back at the Royal Academy, your father didn't send people to kill me entirely because I killed one of your doppelgangers. He wanted me dead. He wanted me dead more than once. It was because I hindered the heavenly fortune and blocked your path, right? Regardless of whether you believe it or not, I never thought of harming you from beginning to end. Qi Naxian stared at her with her dark eyes and said each word clearly. Jojo, why aren't you willing to believe me just this once? Believe you? Arbor's watery eyes were filled with boundless fury. Chapter 49:15. If I believe you, I'll die without a burial ground again. She angrily flung her hand away. Let go. Omega Kotoku naturally wouldn't let go of her. He took a step forward and tightly gripped her arm. Jojo. Starlight seemed to scatter in that pair of pitch-black eyes. Ciao ciao. He called out to her in a low voice, as if he had called out to her in such a gentle manner many years ago. Ha, aren't you just a little trash, a little slave? Arbor's gaze contained a hint of provocation as he coldly looked at him, his lips curled up in a mocking smile. That pair of beautiful eyes was really too cold. It was so cold that Omega Kotoku couldn't help but shiver slightly, a hint of fear rising in his heart. No, no. She wasn't a little trash, nor a little slave. She was his Jojo. He had never thought of her this way in his heart. Never, not even once. This is Lotus Pond Island. Big Brother has already set up an inescapable net. You won't be able to escape. You guys are really capable. Arbor coldly laughed as he fiercely shook off his hand and glanced down. He saw that the passageway that led to the underground water had already been destroyed by Omega Kotoku's palm. It was temporarily impassable. I want to find a place to go into seclusion. All right. As long as you don't plan to escape and leave my side, you can do whatever you want. Omega Kotoku thought to himself. Young master. Young master. The collapsed rocks above were moved away by a group of people in a flurry. The fifth young master's slightly pale face appeared amidst the layers of light and shadow, and his fawn-like eyes stared unblinkingly at Xiao Mu. Arbor couldn't be bothered with anyone else and directly jumped up. He heard Dugu Ling laugh as he said, "Aye, Jojo, are you hurt? Are you all right?" Arbor's face was cold as ice. He didn't say a word as he turned around and walked a few steps. Just as old steward Luo was about to draw his saber, he was glared at by the second young master. Damn it! Were they going to let this troublemaker continue to stay on their ship? Old steward Luo put away his saber and glanced at Arbor. He quickly put on the smiling Mithraea face and asked, second young master, do you have any orders? Omega Kotoku refused to speak to him at all. He ordered, take everyone back to the ship first. Duo Shanmei and the others also wanted to fight them to the end, but unfortunately, the other party had mobilized tens of thousands of harpies. When they saw the formation, they knew that they had no chance of winning and could only surrender. The disciples of the aristocratic families trembled as they were escorted onto the ship. They stood on the deck and looked at each other. They didn't even dare to breathe loudly. Let's go. A few low reprimands could be heard. The whip swung down heavily. Mu Jiating raised his hand to block it for Mu Wuzi, leaving a bloody mark on the back of his hand. Arbor was walking to the cabin door on the second floor. When he turned around and saw this scene, fury ignited in his eyes. Isn't it enough that you've captured them? Family head. When the Mu family disciples heard Arbor's voice, they hastily looked up. They saw their young family head leaning over the railing and looking at them. It turned out that their family head also couldn't escape. The hearts of the Mu family disciples sank slightly. Who told you to attack? Omega Kotoku still wanted to reconcile with the little stoic, so he naturally didn't want anyone to offend her. These insensible things just had to attack people from the Mu family of all people. Chapter 49:16. No matter how useless the Mu clan was, they couldn't do anything in front of the little girl. Only the little girl could do anything to them, no one else could. Under the second young master's sharp gaze, Duguling blinked his eyes and flew forward with a smile on his face. With a smile, he stretched out his hand and slit the throat of the Heavenly Fate sect disciple, throwing him into the sea. The group of aristocratic children standing on the deck were all startled, and subconsciously shrank a little towards the center. Attacking just like that was too scary. If he was so cold-blooded to his own people, then what about these disciples? In the eyes of the young master Omega Kotoku, killing them was no different from killing a chicken or a duck, right? Arbor turned and entered the room. She needed to go into seclusion right now. Eldest Qin was right. She had just finished refining the Pond Lotus Sage Realm and had too much divine power in her body. She needed to digest and absorb it one by one. It was best not to be disturbed again. Arbor closed the cabin door and threw out a shielding array around herself before sinking into cultivation. After sorting out the divine power in her body, she slowly guided it into her Dantian star field. Her star field still looked dim and dark. Clearly, she still couldn't enter. Arbor knew that she couldn't be anxious. As long as her divine sense recovered a little every day, it would be better. 3 days later. Boom! The sound of a kick came from the cabin door. Arbor had already retracted all the divine power back into her body. Her cultivation had also steadily increased to the beginning of the 7th level of God tier. At this moment, when he heard the sound of kicking outside the cabin door, he only moved his eyebrows slightly and slowly opened his eyes. 7th brother, what do you want now? 5th young master's gentle and somewhat distant voice came from outside the door. Ah, so it's 5th brother. What? I'm looking for trouble with that woman. Do you think you can stop me? I just want to remind you. Big brother already said not to disturb Miss Chiao for the next few days. Qin Chang's handsome face twisted slightly, then he said with a smile that wasn't a smile, what? You want to use Big Brother to pressure me again? If you continue to be so reckless, I can only report to Big Brother. Ha! Qin Chang pointed at the cold-faced 5th young master, kicked the cabin door hard, and shouted, I'm just passing by. They always used Big Brother and Second Brother to pressure him. How could a trifling good-for-nothing actually have a higher status than him, 7th young master Qin, in the clan? Big Brother actually trusted him more than himself, how hateful. He would let this brat be proud for 2 more days. He remembered that big brother and second brother would be making a trip to the Forgotten River clan in 2 days. At that time humph. The 5th young master looked back at the 7th young master worriedly and frowned slightly. Should he inform big brother about this matter? She felt that 7th brother was looking for trouble again. The cabin door was suddenly pulled open. Hearing the sound of the door opening, 5th young master hurriedly turned around and happened to meet the young lady's cold eyes. Ciao, ciao, ciao. The 5th young master stammered. Are you hungry? According to his understanding of the little girl over the past few days, the reason why she was willing to go out was to eat. Arbor cast him a glance and originally didn't want to give him a good look. Thinking back, this pitiful 5th Chin didn't seem to have offended her from beginning to end, so his expression couldn't help but soften. 5th young master Chin had been cautiously observing her expression all along. Chapter 49:17. When he saw that the little stoic's expression had eased up a bit, his heart involuntarily relaxed, and he hastily smiled fawningly at her. Jojo, dinner and snacks are ready. I'll have someone bring them over, okay? Arbor harumphed. She originally wanted to roar at him, do you think I'll still eat your Chin family's food? But on second thought, it would be a waste not to eat. Why would she make life difficult for her stomach? She really was a fool. Hence, she nodded her small head reluctantly and said with a cold expression, quickly bring it over. The 5th young master swiftly turned around to instruct the servants, not feeling that there was a problem at all. Little 5th Chin was already used to the little lady's emperor-like tone when she gave orders. As long as the little lady gave an order, he would do it. The little stoic was sitting in the cabin, flipping through a thin book of plants when she heard a light sound coming from the door. The 5th young master ordered several servants to bring in a sumptuous dinner. Afterward, eldest young master Chin also followed in with a grin, still wearing a familiar expression as he greeted Sir Jojo. Jojo, did your advancement go smoothly? Arbor rolled her eyes at him. Don't you know how to see for yourself if you have eyes? Eldest young master sat down in front of her with a grin and muttered to himself, it looks like it went very smoothly. Arbor picked up her bowl of rice and couldn't be bothered with him, minding her own business as she ate. She could only find an opportunity to escape after eating her fill. In any case, her realm had stabilized now, so she could escape at any time. But before that, she still had to find that bunch of weaklings from the Mu family. Murong Fei, Murong Yen, Yun Yunji, and the others were also in their hands. She had to rescue these convenient senior brothers and sisters and take them away as well. When did you start suspecting me? Jojo. Eldest young Master Chin asked with a grin, as if he was only asking some trivial questions related to daily life. Arbor's hand that was picking up food paused, and she unhurriedly put a piece of red braised pork into her mouth. Jojo, I'm very curious. Arbor put down his bowl and chopsticks and straightened his expression. He looked up at the handsome young man sitting in front of him with a smile on his face. She asked very seriously, are Seven Flowers and Gong Songfeng your people or Omega Katoku's people? My people. Eldest young master admitted without hesitation. Arbor nodded. Some of the questions he had in the past could now be connected. That's why the matter of the Red River Canyon. At that time, Gong Songfeng, who was still the ghost-faced hall master, sent you a message through the communication jade amulet when he used the spirit stone cannon to bombard us, right? That's right, Jojo. I've never thought of harming you. The eldest prince sighed. You even noticed such a small detail. It was your father who wanted to kill me. At that time, the internal strife within Tianyun was because your father's subordinates were very dissatisfied with Gong Songfeng's attitude. They believe that Hall Master Gong of the Underground Hall deliberately let us go. However, Hall Master Gong had actually received your order. Emichim. The eldest young master nodded repeatedly like a chick pecking rice. I was the one who ordered them not to harm you. Arbor didn't appreciate it at all and glanced at him coldly. You're really good at pretending. Even I was kept in the dark by you all this time. I only saw through your identity recently. Of course, perhaps it's because there's a worrisome manager Luo by your side, and he deliberately let me see through your identities. Chapter 49:18. Eldest young sir raised his brow with a smile. The little stoic ladled a bowl of soup for herself and only put it down after finishing it. She glanced coldly at eldest young sir and said, "Don't you think it's a coincidence? You and second young sir would always show up on time every time zombies appeared. Did you want to see with your own eyes how big the scene your organization created was? When we were cleaning up Jiaozhong Base, you came along. You killed the corpse puppets and chopped down the nightingale birds. Who would have thought that this young master, who worked hard to kill evil creatures, was the true master of the Heavenly Fate Underground Hall?" Arbor sneered. "Actually, you just wanted to inspect the situation that time and see how things were progressing, right? When the water source was contaminated, you even discussed it with us. Actually, you were well aware that you were the one who ordered the contamination of the water source, right?" Emichim eldest young Sir Qin hastily shook his head. "That's not it. You've wronged me in this matter. Second younger brother sent people to do it. The inspection wasn't false. I wanted to see how second younger brother's subordinates were doing." Arbor sneered. "When we were heading to the Sun Moon secret realm, you sent people to ambush us in the crevice of the Red River Canyon. Now that I think about it, you disappeared for a long time back then. When you reappeared, you were injured, so Qinzhou brought you here for treatment. This was all part of your plan." Emichim. Jojo is so smart." Arbor glanced at him. "Later, when we entered Phoenix Forest for practical experience in the Heavenly Fate ranking preliminaries, we encountered tens of thousands of man-eating bees. It was actually your Heavenly Fate Underground Hall that attracted them, right? However, you and Omega Kotoku were both in our team at that time, so why did you help us? Was it also to conceal your identity?" "Of course not." Eldest young Sir Qin looked at him with a grin and said matter-of-factly, "It was because of you. Jojo wanted to protect those students from the Imperial Academy, so how could we disappoint you?" Ha! Arbor couldn't be bothered with this guy's frivolous banter. "For me." After that, a large group of harpies came to attack us under Gong Songfeng's lead. You weren't there at that time. You guys were late until the matter was over. At that time, I really didn't suspect you. Duan Yu seems to have gone on his way before I did. I remember that Duan Yu even said to you, 'It's too much of a coincidence, you guys came right after the matter ended.' Now that I think about it, I'm still not sharp enough. I'm not good at connecting the causes and effects of these events." Eldest young Sir Qin hastily shook his head and praised, "Jojo is already very impressive. When we met again this time, he was constantly on guard against me." Eldest young Master Qin sighed. "If Jojo hadn't buried so many Thunderfire bombs on the original pleasure boat, I wouldn't have had to risk 100,000 gold coins to summon the carcass sharks and destroy the original boat with the help of the storm so that everyone could change boats. Wouldn't Jojo be even more suspicious of me now that we've changed the boat?" Xiao Mu gazed at her coldly. "I trusted my own judgment too much. I do suspect you, but that's all." At that time, she didn't know whether it was a coincidence that eldest young Sir and the rest saved her while she was drifting in the river of forgetfulness, or whether it was this eldest young Sir's meticulous plan. After that, they kept finding all kinds of reasons to keep her on the boat, so she became increasingly suspicious. But if this suspicion was confirmed, she would have detonated the thunderfire bombs long ago. Chapter 49:19. Who manages Flying Paradise? You? Arbor suddenly asked coldly. Flying Paradise's Hall Master Mu and Star-Plucking Hall's Dugo Ling are both under second younger brother. Eldest young Sir Chin winked at Arbor in amusement. Of course, he wouldn't tell her too much. Flying Paradise was originally under father's control, and it was only in recent years that he successively transferred some of its power to second younger brother. Arbor's fingertips curled up slightly, but his expression didn't change at all. So in her previous life, the reason why young Sir Omega Kotoku would appear in that ghastly hell and carry her out of the confined little laboratory was because it wasn't a coincidence at all. Fan Chioha was Mu Qingya's subordinate, and Mu Qingya was this second young Sir's subordinate. Young Sir Omega Kotoku was originally the mastermind behind Flying Paradise, so it was very normal for him to be able to freely enter and leave the dungeon. To think that she was so grateful to him, worshipping him, and revering him like an idiot back then. Ha! Sure enough, everything was a huge scam. Jojo, do you have any other questions? Eldest young Sir sat across from her like an obedient child, quietly waiting for the little girl to continue asking questions. It was as though he would definitely tell her everything he knew without holding back anything as long as the little stoic wanted to know. Even now, this person was still putting on airs in front of her. Arbor stared fixedly at him like this, attentively observing this hypocrite who was putting on a sanctimonious front. Just as she was about to speak, she heard him sigh and say, regardless of whether you believe me or not. Jojo, but I really never thought of harming you in the slightest. Then what about Joey City? During the finals of the Heavenly Prime ranking, which by is Hidden Moon Hall's Old 7 subordinate. When he jumped onto the stage, Old Second and I were extremely surprised, said eldest young Sir Chin. Eldest young Master Chin said, do you still remember how you broke Old Seven's arm in front of everyone in Phoenix Grove? Old Seven harbored a grudge and sent Bai to deal with you. We only found out about this when it happened. I want to see Omega Kotoku, Arbor said coldly. Eldest young master gazed deeply at her and nodded. All right, then eat some more. I'll call him over. How could Arbor continue eating? After the little stoic icily watched eldest young Sir Chin leave, she flicked her sleeve and swept all the cups, plates on the table to the floor. The more he knew the truth, the more depressed he felt. Fan Chioha, Lu Yiji, Gung Pengcheng, and Mu Qingya, these people who had made her suffer in her previous life were all second young master's people. This second young master actually had the face to tell her that he had never thought of harming her. Ha! What a joke. The Omega Kotoku walked over, stepping on the debris on the floor. He looked down at the mess of cups and plates and said coldly, are they all dead? The floor is so dirty, don't you know how to clean it up? The two maidservants guarding outside the door crawled in, trembling, and quickly cleaned up the messy floor. Don't you have anything to say to me? What do you want to know? As long as you ask, I'll tell you. Second young master gazed at her darkly. You said that you had never thought of harming me. But in reality, you've caused me so much pain. Arbor abruptly stood up, her severe eyes coldly watching Omega Kotoku. You have memories of your previous life, right? Second young master's breathing tightened. I don't know why you have this memory, but I advise you to quickly forget it. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.